Stuff all over the place here.
Good evening, everyone. This is a meeting of the Oregon Village Board, both a regular meeting and a third budget meeting. It is Monday, October 23rd, 2017 at 5:30 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting to order, please, and ask for a roll call.
Bollig.
Here.
Boudreaux.
Here.
Brethauer.
Here.
Carpenter. Here. Grenier.
Here?
Jacobson. Here. And Staton.
Here, thank you. Item 3 is public appearances. Item A, the petitioners are not here, so we'll hold that to see if they get here. And go on to item B, and this is from Planning Commission, so it's Trustee Carpenter, please.
This is a conceptual discussion with Forward Development to propose subdivision, Highlands at Netherwood subdivision. And this was discussed at the October 5th Planning Commission meeting, and it looks like we have a gentleman here that might want to talk with us.
Dennis, are you waiting for Fred to show up?
Oh,
Okay.
Do they have copies or?
They do.
Yeah,
It's up to you if you want.
if you want to wait, we can do some other things.
Okay. He should be here momentarily.
Okay, that's fine, yeah. You expect it to be farther down the agenda, so, yeah. So we'll go to, you want to go to item 4, A, Mike?
Yeah, sure.
Right now, okay.
Yep.
We'll come back to you then, Jeannie, when we're here. Item 4, Village Attorney and Village Administrator Report. Item A, discussion of possible action, 2018 budget issues. Discuss agenda item 13E with Village Attorney.
Yep, this is the levy adjustment?
I got to read that, right?
Please.
Yeah, okay, so item 13 is 2018 budget update and possible action regarding the following budget items. Item A,
Oh, Steve, he's here if you want to.
okay, we'll back up again. It's back to you, Jeannie.
Okay. We moved you gentlemen up in the agenda, if that's okay. Are you ready? Okay, then I'll just read this again. So we're going to have a conceptual discussion with the Forward Development Team on the proposed subdivision, the Highlands at Netherwood subdivision. And this was also discussed at the October 5th Planning Commission meeting. So if you gentlemen want to come up and tell us what you're talking about, that'd be great.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I think we might have them in our packet. Are these them?
Oh, but there's our color. You should really see the color ones.
Thank you.
Thank you. We can share, because I've seen this before.
Thank you.
I'll take another one. Thank you.
Dennis is really good at handing stuff out. He walks around and gives everyone a report.
This is unique, it really is. Well, his one daughter lives in.
Go ahead.
Okay, my name's Dennis Steinkraus. I'm with the Forward Development Group. And this is Fred DeVillers. He's also with Forward Development Group. We've been working on and off with this project probably since spring. And have gotten to the point where we'd like to move forward and eventually submit a preliminary plat here. So we've submitted a concept plan to discuss with you a little bit this evening and to see if there's recommendations to us before we move forward with a formal preliminary plat approval. This is a fairly new concept to the Dane County area. There's not too many subdivisions that's been developed under the coving system, which was developed by a gentleman by the name of Rick Harrison in the Minneapolis area. Fred's worked with Mr. Harrison on a number of times and really is our expert as far as getting Rick on board and taking a look at this. And one of the main reasons that we've gone to this type of concept is because of all the elevation change on this site. And we feel we can preserve the views and the hill as best as anything by the curvilinear roads and kind of meandering them up that hillside. And it's a little newer concept. And I think I'm just going to turn it over to Fred because he's really got the experience with these projects and has dealt with Rick before. So, Fred.
If there's any, this on?
Yeah, you're on.
If there's any specific questions that come up, feel free to just let me know. I've worked with Rick on a couple projects here in Wisconsin, a 240-acre project in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and a 70-acre project in Oshkosh. And one of the unique design features, or at least the methodologies in which he designs land is more of a curvilinear street alignment. He rarely, if ever, uses any tangent sections because those tend to encourage people to put their foot on the gas pedal a little bit deeper than they should. And he also, another kind of trademark of his designs is more of a coving approach in terms of how he varies the setback of the homes from the right-of-way line such that it feels like it's more of an open concept. It gets the houses further away from the traffic. He then also meanders the sidewalk along with the varied setbacks of the front of the homes such that it gets pedestrians further away from the vehicular traffic as well. Tends to then utilize that same type of pullback approach to crossing the streets at intersections well back from the intersection such that when people approach an intersection, they tend to kind of miss pedestrians if the crosswalks are right at the intersection, because then the person who's driving tends to concentrate on the cross traffic versus pedestrians. So if you pull back the pedestrian crossings further back, then they tend to acknowledge those pedestrians first, make sure that the pedestrians can cross either in front of them or at least wait for them to pass by, and then they'll get up to the approach of the intersection. He tends to always work real well because of the curvilinear approach of the street alignments. It tends to blend well with the natural topography of the site, and therefore you have less intrusive land development when it comes to earth movements, and you tend to respect the ebb and flow of what Mother Nature laid down hundreds of millions of years ago. He also does a lot of thought in terms of laying out and encouraging the people that reside in these neighborhoods to then come together and become more of a neighborhood. So he try to focus his, the accessibility to the parks. And one of the major things about this project, as well as he's done about 1,000 now in 46 states and 17 countries, is that he literally starts with the pedestrian pathways first. And in this particular case, since the park was kind of earmarked for the northern area of the site, he pretty much laid the footwork, if you will, for the path that kind of runs the entire kind of north-south direction.
If you look at the plan, we've got the park on the north end. You see there's a trail that comes down through the two cul-de-sacs, continues through here, and through this last cul-de-sac, and then basically down here almost to Jefferson. That's where we try to be able to get the pedestrians to go back and forth, and off the roadways, safe travels, and get to know your neighbors a little bit more when you're kind of walking through close to their property.
Go ahead.
Yes, I see pink lines on here. Are those sidewalks?
Use a lot of different colors, so.
Yeah, they're all-
Yeah, it's kind of like a salmon color. That would be the sidewalks, but he also has a gray pathway through the parks. Typically, that is going to be. I should try gray. Is that just pull it out?
Yeah, I'll come out.
Is this on? Let's see if I can read this here. Typically, the pathways are about 8 feet wide. Here he's got it programmed as a 6-foot wide path, but I would tend to migrate towards something up in here to be 8 feet, just so you can accommodate bikes and pedestrians alike at the same time.
Thank you.
Jeff, have you ever maintained a development that's designed this way? Like, the first thought that comes to my mind is snow removal.
Yeah, well, as far as snow removal, I've actually had a couple of our individuals down at Public Works, both Gary and several of the operators, take a look at this. Their initial thought was kind of a lot like mine. You know, it's a wide enough road, and a slow curve like that is not difficult to plow. We do that up on like South Main Street and some of the other streets throughout the village. Not exactly like this. I think the teardrop shaped cul-de-sac are actually a little easier to plow than when it's just totally wide open and you've got a very large area you have to plow. I think the only concern, the main concern we had from a snow plowing standpoint was that, and we've been in discussion with the developer on this, the idea of using, I think, what do you call it, a ribbon curb.
Yeah.
You know, a ribbon curb is kind of, it's basically just a strip of concrete that borders the outside of a roadway, and so the grass will come right up to that elevation, and we're a little concerned of how that would be impacted. I mean, typically the snow plows, just so that they would probably come along and scrape up portions of the grass and could damage areas like that, and those we would end up having to, or probably be asked to fix in this spring. So, but we're going to work with them on that, and I know, I mean, this is a concept that's been developed up in the Minneapolis area quite a bit.
Yeah,
And
Rick's actually from Minneapolis, so he's done
so they've
a
dealt
few
a lot.
dozen projects up in
They've dealt with
Minnesota.
snow in these, in these communities before, so we're going to continue to work with them just to see, so we can get a comfort level of whether or not that's a good idea or if it's something we would require a little differently. But snow plowing from Gary and those guys, they didn't seem overly concerned about it.
And are there any village parks in this development?
Yes.
Yeah. You want the north end there.
North End, we worked with your committee here, and we have a full-size soccer field on the east-west direction. It could be divided into two junior fields, north and south. Potential little backstop here for baseball and, farmhouse parking and that. And then stormwater. So this whole north end of the project would be open space, and I think the general feeling of your development committee was that it would be adequate.
Yep.
For the area where we're developing.
Could you talk a little bit about the multifamily housing at the southern end of the development?
Yeah, those are essentially single-family homes. They're in a condominium type setting. So those are, I guess they're pink. We're concentrating on pink today. Those are single-family homes. They're just more in a condominium setting where what you have is land condos. And so they're real. We actually did a bunch of these in both our Oshkosh and our Eau Claire projects, and we figured it'd be empty nesters. It turns out it was the 20 and 30-somethings that like it because they don't have to mow the lawn or shovel the snow. Go figure. But this entire area would be a condominium lot, and then each one of those squares, those rectangles would be a lot, so that people can get, be a condominium on this lot, so that people can get fee simple interest to make their financing possible. No different than a platted single-family lot. It's just that then in that area, there would be like a condominium association, in addition to the overall HOA that would then maintain just that lot in terms of snow removal from the driveways and the lawn mowing and things like that.
I see.
We don't have those units totally designed, but we do have some more information because the ones on the south side, well, the ones that are facing Jefferson Street and the path, the front of the house or the living room area is actually towards that path, and the garage comes off on the back side, so your house is a little bit reversed, whereas you enter off the interior street alleyway, get into your garage, and you go through the house, and your living room, kitchen, and open space, however, is more to that path area, so you're focused on the outside versus any kind of streetscape there.
Can you tell us exactly where this is? Okay, it's on CC, but is it after Mulligan's?
Yes,
Yeah,
further west.
Just
In between the Beehive? in Melkins, or
Further west of
Furthermore.
that, yeah,
furthermore, yeah,
yeah.
further down the street? Okay.
Darlene, if you look at that pond, if you're, the lower right-hand of the pond is, or diagram is a pond, and then just to the right of that would be beehive.
Yeah, so like downtown is over here,
Oh, okay.
Mulligan is here.
See, I would turn that around, like, yeah, be like this.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
See, okay, okay.
Map orientation.
Thank you.
Sure.
The, it's probably a little too detailed for the level that we're at, but parking up by that park, I just foresee when it, or when that field is being used, people parking on Netherwood, and I'm wondering if that, like, will we be doing studies or whatever to figure out if that's enough parking, or however that is decided? I'm sure there's probably statistics that people use to judge that, but.
Yeah, I mean, we do have a fair amount of parking on, off the street there. And I guess that's something we'll talk to the city with as we move forward here and see what a good traffic count or parking count would be there. I mean, there is.
It's a pretty big line, actually.
There is availability to park on the roadways too. I know you don't always want that, but if you do look at this, because of some of the longer driveways and the further the homes are set back, the people have a tendency to actually, visitors park in their driveways versus on the road, and that keeps the roadways clear of cars and safer for pedestrians and kids, riding their bikes on the street or whatever, so.
Okay.
It's a little bit different, but we think there's some good trade-offs in it as far as safety and appeal, actually.
Have we showed this to the fire department at all?
No, I don't think at this point.
You know, Jeff, has the fire department seen this?
The fire department has not seen this yet.
So that'll be done at some point in time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's part of the process.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Jen, I don't know, but I would guess there'd be no parking on Netherwood.
You think?
Don't you, Mike?
They will not be parking, in other words.
Yeah.
It's
Well, not, I mean,
Well, I would think there'd be no parking signs.
oh,
I don't know
okay.
that, but that'd be my guess.
That would be
What do
my
you think,
hope.
chief?
I think that road is really narrow.
Yeah.
See how that could possibly even take a car along the side. On either the north or south sides, we'd have to post it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, somebody will try.
Oh, they will, for sure.
The positive, it really is only one field there, so it's not a complex like we have at J.C. Park or
Yeah.
some of the other areas. So you're not going to see as much overlap as you would like in a tournament, but we'll be working with them on. I think they've done a nice job in kind of showing a considerable amount of parking for that area in that park over there. So I think we have something to work with there.
I'd be interested to see what some of the local law enforcement say about this design. I mean, it looks aesthetically very pleasing, but I know from personal experience that any roads that are curvy like this, whether or not traffic is actually exceeding the speed limit or not, people think they are because of the curves. So I'd be interested to hear what the residents of those subsections have to say.
Do you mean when you say think they're driving faster, do you think, is it the driver or the people that are watching drivers go through?
People that are watching it, we have several roads in the village now that are very curvy,
Yep.
and people think that they're going faster than the speed limit when they're really not, but because of the curves, it makes the car sound like it's going faster
Oh,
around
sure,
those
sure,
curves.
sure.
Yeah, so,
Before we hired, and I'm not saying before development, this is back before the crash, we went up to Minneapolis and visited nearly a dozen of his developments that he
Yeah.
designed. And spent about 2 days just interviewing residents and, I mean, almost unanimously, they all said that their, the safety of they felt like their overall development was safer because there was just less cars going down tangent sections.
yeah.
They really enjoyed the sidewalks being further away from the roads for their kids
Sure.
to ride on.
Yeah.
They just like everyone, unanimously said we just like that. And The resale, we also did some research on resale. The resale was significantly lower in these developments versus the typical traditional grid type of layout. But, yeah, I would imagine if their tires are a little bit lower on air, for sure, they're gonna be screeching, especially on like a hot summer afternoon.
Right, right. Very good, thanks.
You bet.
Other questions? Excuse me, other questions?
I would just say that I think I've seen this before because I'm on the planning commission, and when the planning commission first saw this, there was a lot of like raised eyebrows. You all know the guys on the planning commission. And then after about 3 minutes, they're like, huh, well, this is kind of cool. And then they started talking about it, and so I would tell you the overall reaction from the planning commission was very positive. They thought it would be a nice addition to the village, something different, and especially the whole concept of locating the house on the lot to make the views around the corners a little bit better. That's an interesting concept.
Well, the views is kind of twofold. One is it's views of the relationship between the vehicles and the pedestrians, because you're opening up your viewscape. And then the other component is the views from within your house, so that a dining room is not looking at your neighbor's dining room, or if you're not looking out the front window directly at the next. You're kind of creating view corridors from within the homes that create a better viewscape for the occupants within the home, that then match the viewscapes that are throughout the development. And a lot of his clients are national home builders, where they both control the site and they control the architecture. We'll try to do as best we can as well, but when you do that, then you truly are controlling where you're placing your windows, so that your viewscapes from within the home are much better than they otherwise would be.
Other questions or feedback? I mean, they're here with their conceptual plan to get feedback from us on what we like or don't like, and to help them continue with the process, so. I agree with Jeannie, I like the concept. I wasn't planning that night, but I like the concept. I like the pedestrian trails and idea of connecting community, connecting neighbors. I think that's all real important, so.
Thanks.
No, I think it's a great plan, good idea.
Thank you.
So we are currently talking to Dennis and his group about some, I guess we call them west side cost of coming into the village and doing this development. I think we're going to nail that down in the next couple of weeks, and then we are going to try to work with them to move this along as quickly as possible. They want to get to the Capital Regional Plan Commission and be done with that by April, which means we have to get going on it. So you'll be seeing this quickly.
Okay.
Yeah. Or soon, I should say.
Yeah, so it looks like the board is saying continue. Everyone's nodding their heads or commenting, so that was favorable.
Appreciate that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. Thanks for your presentation. Get slide back, or it'll be fine. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks for coming.
So that will take us back to item 3A, which is tabled from the October 2nd board meeting. And this from the Plan Commission. So Jeannie, you're on again.
All right, so 3A1, this is the approval of the amended general development plan, the GDP, and the specific implementation plan, the SIP, submitted by Ben Cowan, manager of Oregon Ice Arena Inc., for exterior recreational improvements and uses including outdoor volleyball courts, a sports diamond, fencing, and outdoor entertainment. The improvements to be made to the property at 100 North Perry Parkway, Village of Oregon, Dane County. This is a recommended motion from the Planning Commission. Meyer moved, seconded by Vino, to recommend to the Village Board the approval of the GDP and the SIP, including the site plan submitted by Ben Cowan, conditioned upon the following: making the revisions to the GDP and SIP requested from the village attorney in an email sent to the applicant on September 14th, meeting the village planner's recommendations from his memos dated September 7th and September 8th of this year, and complying with the zoning violations from Public Work Director Jeff Rao's memo dated July 6th, 2017, excluding the immediate removal of the metal cycling dumpster. The limousines must be removed by November 1 of this year. That motion carried 7-0. Item number 2, consulting fees. The applicant wants to discuss the outstanding balance of $5,289.42 owed to the village. And this is some background information on this process. The July 13th, 2017 Planning Commission meeting, we had the first public hearing, and the commission's motion was due to the GDP SIP submittal not being acceptable. Meyer moved, seconded by Marr, to reconvene the public hearing at the next regular Planning Commission meeting in August, and that was unanimous. And on August 3rd, 2017, at the Planning Commission meeting, Cowan elected to withdraw his current submittal for an amended GDP and SIP with the intention to address the concerns from the staff memos and commission members. He reported he will submit a complete application in the future, and Rao reported that all new submittal information and material needs to be submitted to the village by August 24th. At the September 14th, 2017 Planning Commission meeting, we had the second public hearing, and the commission made the motion which is on our board agenda tonight. So we have a discussion and possible reaction or possible action regarding ordinance number 17-15. This is an ordinance changing the zoning classification of property located at 110 North Perry Parkway. So I will make this motion for discussion. I would make a motion that the board by right? Is this the motion I'm doing?
Yeah.
The board by 2/3 vote of the board members may suspend the rules and have the first and second readings at tonight's meeting.
I'll second.
Okay. And then should I wait to do the other one after discussion, or should we vote on that?
This is just a motion to suspend the rules.
Okay.
I think it's best to do them one at a time.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that allows us to vote on the actual resolution tonight. That's
Okay.
what this was. So any discussion on this?
I would like to hear what Mr. Cowan has to say about the, about this, especially the outstanding balance that's.
Okay, that would come, Jerry, under that second motion.
Okay,
Okay, so first we vote to suspend the rules or not,
okay,
and then we do the major discussion on the submittal.
okay.
So any discussion on submitting, or on suspending the rules? So all in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Okay, that carries, so then that takes us to the second motion.
Okay, so then I'll make the second motion for discussion, that we adopt ordinance number 1715, that is changing the zoning classification of property located at 110 North Prairie Parkway.
I'll second that.
Thank you. So that brings that motion before us. So Ben, if you want to come to the microphone, please. Sounds like Mr. Bollig has a question right away. Go ahead, Jerry.
Yeah, I guess this is probably for staff. What does that balance consist of? I've forgotten.
It's Vanderwall and Matt's time.
So in other words, those are funds that we've already paid for, the village has paid.
Not all of them. I would say 90% of them, Jerry,
90%.
something like that.
You've either paid or you've been billed for them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I just received Matt's bill today for your September work. Yeah.
Okay. I guess I'm gonna have problem supporting any of this right away until that back due balance is paid. I mean, the taxpayers have already, or are gonna pay for this real soon, I assume. So, any response to that, Ben?
I don't see how these fees got stacked up so high. Like, I submitted the original application, which myself and Jeff Grenier looked at, and yeah, there was some stuff to add, but it seemed like every time that we emailed Jeff or heard back from Mike, anybody, it was, okay, add this, and then we'd add it, everything that they wanted us to add. I'd resubmit, and then they'd come back and, no, you guys have to add this, and then at the end of all of it, Matt went through it and crossed off 80% of stuff that I had to add because it didn't make sense. So realistically, we're paying for stuff that they told us to add that we didn't need to get approval. So I guess that's kind of where I have a concern with the balance. It's like, it's kind of astronomical. I mean, the whole school complex only cost them $4,600, and ours is $5,280 or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, the Rink's a nonprofit organization. It struggles to keep its doors open, basically. So for us to have to all of a sudden shell this out by November 1st, it's not feasible.
So a comment I'd make, Ben, fees for developing are fairly high. I mean, it's lawyers and planners, and we pay a pretty good fee for that. So, and people that haven't done development don't realize how much it costs, how quickly it adds up. So that's kind of, and you didn't add the cost because you submitted things. It added to the cost because Matt and Mike had to look through that and get it all in the right form and deal with it. That's where that happened.
Well, and that's kind of like the other part of it. I mean, our entire GDP and SIP together, even with the drawings, is like 7 pages. And most of the stuff are like literally one line, like, you know, occupancy, 1,000 people. So, I mean, to go through the whole thing, you can read the whole thing in 20 minutes. So, and that's where I just calculated at $5,200, if we're paying $160 an hour for consulting fees, which I do have a question about that, is, I mean, that's them spending 32 and a half hours on a document that you can go through it in literally 20, 30 minutes. So that's where, like, I don't get it, like,
Yeah.
where all the back and forth came for us to have to pay this fee.
But for the record, it wasn't just Mike Slavny and Matt. That's why I put this on. It was the planning commission that in 2 cases said, go back and redo it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just the staff or the consultants, it was the commission members.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I mean, it's not like it's just on these guys, the whole process.
Yeah.
But then I guess I do have a question about the consulting aspect of this. So we have a planning commission that is, you know, it's a board, you know, Jeannie's on it. What exactly is the planning commission's job? Like, what are they doing if everything that's submitted goes to an outside agency as a consultant? When, I mean, couldn't most of the stuff be done like as the planning commission board? Like, why are we paying someone else to do like simple stuff? Like, I don't get that part of it.
Well, the nature of the process now is a planner and a lawyer are involved. I mean, that's the way it is. That's the way it's been for a long time. I don't know if staff wants to add
When
it.
we met with Ben, I tried to explain that when you go through a zoning change, it's not simple. You're creating a law. And in some respects, when you do something like this, and I know Matt would support this, you're protecting the village, but also protecting the petitioner. If somebody has a complaint against something that they're doing, we'll be able to pull the ordinance out and say that's been through a thorough process.
Yeah.
Could I just weigh in briefly?
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
I wasn't involved in all aspects of this. I don't think I was at the plan commission meetings where this was addressed, but I had a chance to kind of, from a distance, watch what was happening. And it seems to me that this had to go through the process about 3 times. It's kind of the way
Or more.
yeah. And so, because it had to go through the process multiple times, the staff and the consultants had to look at it and work on it multiple times, and that's why the fees added up. I mean, every time it was back to the drawing board, it was another, you know, okay, review the next work product, figure out what the issues are. And so that, unfortunately, that's how this one unfolded. It took at least 3 runs at it.
Ben has mentioned numerous times, kind of always comparing things to the J.C. Park East development with the high school and how much they were wanting to do and everything like that. And we have spoken to him on numerous occasions and actually emailed him all of the documents that were submitted and letting him know that the submittal by the high school and the school district was a very complete, very thorough, 30, 40 pages or more of information that had obviously, someone had gone through, looked at the requirements within our ordinances and provided all that information. And if I remember right, I believe that only came through 1 meeting. 1, if not 2 meetings.
Well, I think they had a conceptual.
Right, probably had a conceptual discussion and then 1 meeting. And so I think it's unfair to try to compare it against something that from day one, we let the applicant know that it was incomplete and that it was not thorough and it did not provide enough information to truly understand what was going to be proposed for the property. And it was a struggle along the entire way of just getting that information into the submittals. So I feel like Ben's pointing the finger at me. I'm fine with that, but we stand by going through the files and looking at things that have been reviewed multiple times because of being incomplete and not containing the information that had been requested.
Well, and that's where, I mean, going back to, not having all the information, like our current, the first submittal that we had, the GDP and SIP, minus the elevation changes and the drainage from the facility itself, had just as much information on it as the original Ice Arena's GDP SIP that got approved to build a building and a hockey rink and break ground and cement. Like, it's just, it seems like the standards now all of a sudden are just, they're changing, based on what we're trying to do. Like, and that, I guess that's the hard part, because, I mean, Jeff was involved with this, from the very start, and from that original one, like, he felt a lot of these. So, like, I just kind of feel like, it's the I gotcha, like all the pictures and all the stuff. Phone call and say, hey, Ben, can you clean up the rink a little bit? Like, everything seems like it's coming against us right now, and like this over and over and over. Fair, like, and life's not fair, and I can appreciate that, but like right now I feel like we're getting stepped on, and it's just, it's not fun.
Yeah, I can tell you, Ben, there was no attempt by anybody to step on you, to be unfair, or to pile up bills. That did not happen. Jeff's explained what took place, how many times, different ways we can explain it. That's what it was.
No, I
I'm willing to
appreciate
look.
that.
I'm willing to look at a payment plan. The board would have to approve that, but we stretch this out. You're not going to do any work until May anyhow, probably, right?
Well, we're trying to get, we want to get the sand in just like as soon as we can.
But if
So
you
we can have
don't
an outdoor
get it
pond.
done, that's not the issue, because I think what, Jerry, I don't know where the board stands, but says this bill needs to be paid before you proceed. If that's the case, and you want to stretch it out, you could do equal payments of the amount over the number of months from now until May. I believe if the board approved that, I don't know if they would or not. We'd have to decide. But that's one option that might help. Personally, I'm also okay if the board approves to have staff look through and see if there's any amounts they would feel comfortable setting aside to reduce this a bit.
Okay.
It won't be
that'd good.
substantial. That's not because you whined at us. That's because I'd like to help the ice arena. Because whining's not going to get you anything. Okay, it has at times, but it's not going to tonight. Just so you know
Sorry,
that going forward.
I didn't feel like I was whining. I thought I was just
Yeah,
talking, but
felt like whining to me.
okay.
So,
I would just make a couple comments. I would from the planning commission perspective, everything that I read for under number 2 with those different dates of the meetings, it was not staff. It wasn't staff picking on the applicant. It was the planning commission saying we don't have enough information to make a decision. So I don't want staff to feel like this is their fault. The first GDP SIP that came in it just didn't have the information in it that we needed to make the decisions. It had sentences in it like the sand will be brown. And that just doesn't cut it. Maybe if you are working in a village with 200 people, but we're 10,000 people these days, Ben, and we operate a little bit different professional capacity. So, so you can see under number 2, the bullet points, that this came before the planning commission 3 different times. So when staff says they had to look at it 3 different times, it's because the planning commission told them, this is not meeting our standards, we do not feel comfortable making a decision. And it was the applicant's responsibility to go back and fix it.
thank you.
One of the things I didn't see addressed on here under the bullet points or the description for the tabled items was the fire safety code issues that were previously brought up before the board. Have those been taken care of?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. That, everything's cleaned up. Limos are gone.
Oh, no, this was...
This was a while ago.
Right, it was,
Yeah.
I haven't seen it for a while, but I also didn't see that it was resolved. Record if it was, I think it was like exposed wiring and some other things.
Yep, everything's good to go. They were in probably a month and a half ago.
Thank you.
Okay, so looking at the consulting fees, is there any interest in, if we approve the resolution, we could approve it pending payment of the fees by a certain date.
So I
You
have a
want us to
quick,
look at that or not, Ben? Stretching payments out?
Yeah, I mean, we can't afford to pay it
Yeah.
by November 1st, so it's going to have to be something like that.
Yeah.
I have a question on that. When a developer comes to the village with a GDP and an SIP, do they sign any legal document that states that they're going to be responsible for the fees? Are there any estimates on that legal document that gives them a ballpark of what those fees could amount to?
They pay a deposit of $1150. They pay us $1,150. $150 that is a deposit. The rest of the money could be refunded to them if the project doesn't go ahead or the fees are not having to be covered. But then they get an invoice every month. So it isn't like we just say, oh, here at the end of the project, here's the total. They get a monthly invoice every month.
So there's nothing in the document that states what the range typically is?
It's hard to predict.
Because it could be all over depending
Yeah.
on the project.
I mean,
The
sometimes
quality of the submittal is what determines how much it's
I mean,
gonna
sometimes
cost.
we actually return money if the project goes cleanly.
So, just a
Yeah.
comment, the way the ordinance is set up now, it says that the approval is not effective unless certain conditions are satisfied, and one of those conditions is payment of this fee. And it says by November 1. So I could, if the board wants to allow for that amount to be paid in installments, I could modify that paragraph to say, instead of the applicant shall pay X dollars to the village, it would say the applicant shall enter into an agreement with the village to pay X dollars. The agreement shall provide for equal monthly payments through, and then, the way I could set it up so that they could have as much time as you want to give them, but they'd have to enter into an agreement with the village to make these payments. And then once they've done that, then the zoning would be effective. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to say, you're not going to act on the ordinance until it's paid. So, a couple of different options.
Have all of the other requirements been met, Jeff?
Yeah, have the other conditions relating to outdoor storage of stuff?
I believe the vehicles were moved, or are they all gone?
All gone.
Yeah, they're
Okay,
gone. I was
vehicles
down
are
there
gone.
today.
I've
But
been
they look
down-
good.
Went down there before the previous meeting, and they've done a nice job of cleaning up the landscaping. I think you've added rock in the planters, and that looked nice. I believe you were still cleaning up some of the stuff behind the building. But they've been making good improvements on the storage of items out there.
So if this amount were to be paid, you'd be all right with them proceeding with the development?
Yeah.
And rather, if the amounts were to be paid, if the ordinance was to be passed, they'd be ready to start the development that next day?
Yeah, we're not, I don't think we're the cog in this.
I just whispered to Matt that rather than preparing an agreement, which would then cost somebody to prepare,
Yeah.
I would just want to adopt the ordinance until we have this payment plan agreed to between the icery and the village.
Actually,
And
that was-
if they don't pay it, then the ordinance never gets approved. And
Yeah.
rather than paying Matt to draft an agreement, and then we're going to have to pay for that.
And so then the
So
way.
they wouldn't know until April if this would get approved.
Well,
Am I
the
thinking
board,
of that right?
the board could decide, how long of a payment plan, and they want to pay it quicker, that, be up to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then the only change of the ordinance, right now it says these conditions have to be satisfied by November 1. You could just change that to April 1, you could adopt the ordinance, but the zoning wouldn't actually take effect unless they made the payment, and then they'd have more time to do it.
Okay.
Can't it be like adopt the ordinance and we agree upon, payments so we can actually get it started to help pay for?
But the point Mike was making then is that if we're gonna enter into another agreement, now there's more time and money spent drafting an agreement, and a payment agreement.
So would you just simply modify paragraph 3? Is that what you're proposing?
Paragraph 2 makes a reference to November 1, and paragraph 3 makes a reference to November 1. So those two dates could be changed.
And other than that, the ordinance would stand?
Yeah.
That makes sense to me. Doesn't make sense to pass an ordinance that might be rescinded. So we should deal with the money end first, I think. And I'd be in favor of trying to see what we could do to negotiate what the ice arena owes. What I'm kind of hearing is that, and I've been through this in another nonprofit that I work for, that people that haven't done developments in the past don't know how to anticipate. And the village's job isn't to anticipate for them. The village has a role to play, and it's a very well-defined role. So I can see where Ben, trying to do the right thing, didn't have the ability to anticipate where it was going to go. And the village didn't do anything wrong because it got there. The village did everything according to the guidelines that was in place, and yet here we are. So I would be in favor of doing something to make this more affordable.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned a few minutes ago. Have staff review and see if they feel there's any place we can help with this expense, so it helps the ice arena.
And let's deal with the money part first and then bring the ordinance back for approval when that's paid.
Yeah. So you're saying, Jeff, we deal with the money part first, come back at the next meeting with a proposal from staff on what could be set aside and save them money, set up a payment plan, probably till April 1st, and then deal with the ordinance after the money's paid. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah. So it would be April before they'd know for sure where they stand.
Well, they know, you would know right now because you can see what the proposed ordinance is. It's a matter of record. And you know the only thing that's between you and the execution of this is the payment.
Well, but
No, the board has to vote on it.
Board has to vote on it. They may not have the vote, right now, there may not be a majority on the board to support this zoning change.
Is there a way for us to have a discussion about concerns the board might have so that we could make those adjustments in the interim as well? I mean, if we do need to go back through the ordinance and redo it, it might be good to know that now rather than wait 5 months.
If you want to, you can debate the ordinance, talk about, you can even vote on it, but then now you're voting on it.
Well, I wasn't talking about calling the motion. I was just sort of similar to when Forward Development was here earlier to say, hey, this is our proposal. What do you guys think? I mean, I know we can't guarantee that all of us are going to be on the board come April. We're going to have an election. 3 of us might go off, but to at least give Ben an idea of where the board sits right now and to give you an idea of what concerns we might have.
Yep, well, I think it's a good point. I think besides talking about the money, the board should have the discussion about the actual ordinance. It's a good idea.
I think that we got this sheet of paper from Mike, and he said that he kind of proposed a set of amount of balance each month, like November, December, January, February, March, and April. And then it would be totally paid by May 1st, without interest. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I think we've kind of nodded our heads pretty much in favor of that.
Yep. Has the village paid any legal costs at all to consultants for any work done on this project?
Yeah,
Yes.
some bills have been paid. It's been going on quite a while, so some have been paid.
Yeah, okay.
So anything else on the financial part? You want to start talking about the resolution itself?
I think we get the money squared away and then we can worry about the ordinance.
Yep.
At a future date.
Okay. So others have said they'd like to talk about the ordinance tonight, so the petitioner has an idea as to whether or not it'll go ahead, knowing that that could change by the time a formal vote came once the bill is paid.
Well, if he could pay even more each month, then it would be done sooner, and then we could do the,
Yeah, that's fine. We're just saying when the bill's paid, then we could talk about the ordinance.
Right.
Jeff is saying going to have that conceptual discussion, so Ben kind of gets an idea as to where things stand, whether or not this might pass or not.
and we don't want to keep adding stuff to it too, so we want to get it, so they get their payment, get their
Yeah.
payments done, and so he can go ahead with this.
So do you want to talk about the ordinance tonight, so they have an idea where it might head, or do you want to wait until the bill is paid?
I think it'd be a courtesy to let the ice arena know where it stood.
Yeah, I do too. That's my thought. We should talk about it tonight and give them a feeling as to where it is and go from there with them knowing full well that can change by the time a formal vote happens, based on people changing their minds, changed information, or new people on the board. So we will go then to the resolution, what they're planning on doing. Why don't you explain that for the board and the public then that's watching, what your plans are for the outside area?
So outside will be 2-court sand volleyball, where we can do, like, we'll have leagues and tournaments and, you know, kids and adult, basically just kind of like just headquarters there. And then a little bit northeast of that, it's all in the same lot. So like the volleyball courts is a 90 by 90, and then to the right of it, if you're looking at the school, that'll be used as like a wiffle ball, kickball little area, and then also another place where we can bring tents in so we can do live entertainment. Part of the outdoor aspect, and this will honestly probably, at this point, probably be in 2 years, would be build concrete slab, potentially put up kind of like a little concession area structure, where we could just have, outdoor music, entertainment, play sand volleyball, and just have a good time. That's pretty much all it is.
So it's not connected to the resolution, but how do you pay for that if you have trouble paying these consulting fees?
Donations. So all the sand is 100% donated. I have a landscaping company that's donating all the drain tile. Had a guy donate his time to dig up the volleyball court. The fencing, still working on sponsorships for that. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people want to see it happen, so being pretty generous with, donation of time and material.
Yeah, okay, good.
So have you already started construction?
The hole is dug.
For the volleyball court?
Volleyball,
Okay.
yeah. We did that in the spring, because honestly, we didn't know that it needed to be rezoned or anything until I emailed Candy. Like, we figure it's a sport. The original was to have a second side built.
So other questions or comments for Ben, please?
Ben, I remember you saying with the music that you would be coming back to the village board for approval for each event, is that right?
Mm-hmm. I think what we talked about at that last planning commission meeting was that if I had a set of dates, like for the spring, summer, fall, that we would then come back to with those dates, our slot of.
Well, I would just make sure that you're working with the chief of police on that to, cause I'm sure you're gonna be serving alcohol outside.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so make sure that you have a security plan with him, make sure he looks at your fencing. I just don't wanna slow you down and, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just kinda get your ducks in a row.
Yeah, and I've talked to the chief about this a few times.
Okay. But
Back in the spring.
written plans are always good.
Okay.
Jeannie, if you go to Exhibit A on page 2 at the top,
Yes.
I think that's
Oh,
what
I
you're
see,
talking
yep.
about. Yep. Let's gotta go to the planning commission first.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it goes to the plan commission and then it goes to us.
Yep.
Yeah.
So so keep that in your timeline, Ben. Sometimes there's a month in between.
Yeah, I think we were gonna try to do like the February, like somewhere around like the February meeting to get the process started, so we could have everything ready to rock for summer.
Okay.
Some of the things that I like about this project are that if we're going to have something like this anywhere in the village, this is sort of out away from residential areas, and it seems like a good place to have it. And then I expressed my concerns that the other side of being out away from residential areas is it's on the outside edge of law enforcement's patrols and backed up by woods and then the highway behind. But, all that can be mitigated with security. So I personally am in favor of this plan, and if it's going to help make the ice arena more viable, if it's going to draw more people to that area, I could see it even pairing well with the use of the athletic fields to the south of the high school, as parents come for their kids' sports, or if there's bleed over back and forth between the two. So to me, this works really well in this area. I see a lot of synergy, and it seems as if Ben's making his best effort to make sure that this fits in with the village's plans. And I think this is something, I know that this is something that I would support if we can get it done right.
Will you have security on staff, I'm guessing, during these events? 1,000 people sounds like an awful lot of people.
Yeah. So like if we get to the point where he thinks that we need there.
Okay.
I think every event will be a little bit different. Like
Sure.
if it's more of like a concert type atmosphere, then probably need a few more. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've talked about video cameras and surveillance and that type of stuff as well, so we have spoken a little bit about the events.
To kind of circle back to a conversation we had at our last board meeting, how does that jive with the only having one officer on staff at a time?
Yeah, well, that could certainly create more work. I mean,
That, yeah,
you know, Jeff was talking about access to the building, and, you know, once the Perry Parkway extension is put in, then that'll help with that as well. But yeah, it could definitely be challenging depending on the events.
yeah, okay, thank you.
Jerry?
Yes, Ben, how many events a year do you anticipate you'd be serving alcohol for?
Well, I mean, like the league stuff, you know, during the week, I think it could be an every night kind of deal, you know, for the adult
Okay.
stuff. But like the bigger events, when we bring in the tent and all that, I think we were trying to plan maybe one a month. So 4 to 5 a summer,
For
you
summer?
know, just depending on weather, obviously.
And each of those you'd be coming back and getting a separate permit for, is that correct?
Well, I think the plan was, what we talked about, the planning commission was, to basically give you guys a list of, here are the events that we want. I didn't have to keep coming back. It could be all done at, you know, the beginning of the year, kind of pre-season.
Okay, so,
Can I just clarify
Yeah,
a
go
couple
ahead.
things here? So, just to make sure we all understand, this is the zoning issue before you tonight. The alcohol beverage license that has been issued so far for the facility only allows alcohol indoors. So, in order for alcohol to be sold or served at this place, they're gonna have to come back in and seek an amendment to their alcohol beverage license to define the outdoor area as part of the area where they could serve. And so we haven't even started that discussion yet. Assuming when we get to that discussion, if the board says, well, we're just gonna approve the outdoor area for alcohol sales, then they could sell alcohol outdoors, serve it outdoors anytime they want, if that's how it's approached. The board would have the opportunity to address whether there are different ways you want to approach that when you're dealing with the alcohol license. With respect to coming back to the board for permission to use the outdoor area, if this license is approved, they can use the outdoor area anytime without coming back to the board for special permission for baseball, volleyball, and similar games on the ball diamonds and the volleyball courts, and for outdoor eating and drinking only within the fenced area. So if they want to serve food and beverages outside, they can do that under this zoning without coming back to the board to seek special permission. Remember, they still have to deal with the alcohol license issue. I think the concept of coming back to the board for approval for other events would be, for example, you've talked about maybe having a music performance or something, like a concert or something like that. That kind of an event, they'd have to come back to the Plan Commission and Village Board to get approval for something like that. Does that help clarify?
oh, yes, yes.
I have a question about that. If,
Yeah.
I kind of like all the work that we put into the current alcohol license that the Ice Arena has.
Yeah.
And instinctually, I hesitate to want to crack that can open again and go back through it. If, there was a separate company that managed that venue outside, would that separate company be able to come through and request an alcohol license in its own merit? Like, could Ben form a separate entity that would own the entertainment outside that would get the license for those events alone?
Just for the outdoor area?
Just for the outdoor area, just for the events?
Maybe. I mean,
Would
they
that be cleaner?
I don't know. I mean, you'd have one license held by one party for the indoor area. That license that you've all, been through the process of, and that one's fairly clean at this point. I mean, I
Yeah,
think
that's what I like about it.
Yeah.
Couldn't it just be a simple, instead of like an indoor, just 100 North Perry Parkway?
Sure, if the board wants to say that the entire property, indoor and outdoor, is open for alcohol, sales, and service, they can do that. But typically, when you're dealing with something like this, you're a little more specific in terms of delineating the areas where you can serve. Now, we haven't got to that yet, but presumably they're going to be looking at, the board is going to be looking at where is alcohol going to be served, number one, and number two, when is it going to be served? Is it going to be anytime, or is it going to be, and again, we haven't even started that discussion, to my knowledge.
And, you bring up a really good point that we haven't started the discussion, and I feel as if this potentially could cost a lot of money if we don't approach it from the right perspective. You know, when I think about the only other venue where we've kind of had this conversation in my recollection is Ziggy's. And in many ways, Ziggy's is kind of a small template. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that my thought process extends to this project, but that's my only frame of reference. So I'd be interested to see, Mike, if you and Matt could strategize a way that we could come at this that would minimize the amount of back and forth. Because I think the board is fairly consistent in the way that it looks at alcohol licenses. We've had enough of these discussions that I feel like the board knows what it has an appetite for and what it doesn't. But I don't feel that the board would be in a position right now to all be on the same page as far as this specific project. But I think we could maybe get there or get closer than we are right now with a discussion that was sort of framed maybe by you two.
Sure.
To help us think through it and work through it so that when we finally do go to Ben and say, hey, this is what we think we'd be willing to do, we're pretty close.
Sure.
Jerry, what do you think of that approach?
Actually, I was just going to say, I think we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves by worrying about next year. Again, I think for right now, I have some thoughts, but I think for right now, I'd like to make sure that we get that debt paid for, and I think Steve's payment plan is a good plan. If Ben thinks that's workable for his organization, that would take care of that part of it, and then we can take care of the ordinance. Or are we taking care of the ordinance tonight also?
You're just
No.
talking about it.
Yeah, we're talking about it to kind of give Ben an idea as to where the board might be on going
Okay.
forward
And,
if this happens.
And one
they
issue on the
come back.
ordinance is this Exhibit A where it says outdoor eating and drinking only within fenced areas, which then we started to have a discussion about, well, does outdoor eating and drinking extend to alcohol? And Ben said it'd be nice if it would, and that's kind of how we got to having this conversation.
Right. Right.
So what I'm hearing you say is you really don't feel comfortable going any further until the money's dealt
I
with.
really don't, because I guess I've been around long enough. I remember when the ice arena was built. It was meant to be a venue for youth hockey, period. And then, well, Ben, you know the rest of the story. Everybody knows the rest of the story. You know, it costs a lot of money to operate an ice facility. And it just started snowballing, and obviously, unfortunately, I should say, even though it was supposed to be a youth facility, alcohol was looked at as a source of revenue to make the whole place work. And I guess for me, and the whole board will have to decide this, if they want to continue with that strategy to make the whole place work in the future, that's something that will have to be addressed at some point. I'm not going to say I don't, but I guess what I would say is I'm not done thinking about it. Those are my thoughts.
So Ben, why has it not worked financially as a hockey rink? I mean, that was kind of how it started out, and it seems like you've had to go to looking at everything you can to make money.
Yeah.
And it's costly. I know we were told that before it opened, but it just it creates
Yeah, it's
a lot of questions.
It's close now, with the state bank, forgiving a big portion of that loan, and then the current interest rate we have. Right now, unfortunately, we're still playing catch up from we had got hit by lightning 2.5 years ago, and so at that point, the insurance said they were going to cover. They covered 46 of 155 that was spent. So I think, coming into potentially March, that should all be caught back up, and then it should be able to sustain. But a lot of the projections and stuff were made, quite honestly, with like trying to sell ice during the day, like during the school, like there's just at the old loan and the old rate, you couldn't sell enough ice. Like it wasn't possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like a lot of the rinks that are successful, like McFarland is a great example. Like they're 100% paid for. Like they did the fundraising, granted they've been around for 30 years, but yeah, to hold any kind of debt on a facility like that is it's tough.
Yeah, and you went around them, but we encouraged the rink to not start until they had half the cash on hand,
Yeah.
and it wasn't even close.
Yeah.
And that's
Well,
gonna struggle
I'm still
since then.
surprised, like, it was doomed to fail.
Yeah.
From the very
Yeah.
moment it was built, just with, the interest and,
Yeah, it cost the bank a huge chunk,
yeah.
there's no doubt. That's neither here nor there now, so. Other thoughts?
Well, always from the beginning of the ice arena, it was very costly for the people, all the ice people, on the soccer, or the ice skaters to be, had a lot of volunteer work to build it and to fix it up, but there was a lot of cost to it, outrageous cost to it, and then they got behind on that because it was just so big a cost. And then they did have a lot of ice people to skate on there, and to a lot of communities like Wanakee gave them the property, they gave them to build on it, and Oregon didn't do that to ours, and it's been hard. It's a hard thing, and we wanted to see it continue. So I think with maybe setting up this budget plan, we can get caught up, and then he can go forward then.
Other thoughts?
Jerry, is your concern about adding different functions to the ice arena, like volleyball, is it concern for mission, about mission creep?
No, adding the other functions, that's, I'm all for athletic activities in a community. I mean, you can't have enough of that. It leads toward better health for all the residents. It's just the reliance on alcohol to be able to produce those events.
I see.
And I know that's just the fact of life, but I just, doesn't mean I have to be comfortable with it.
So would you do these other events without an outside alcohol license?
It'd be tough. Like, and just think about it, so headquarters, perfect example. Are people gonna go there and play volleyball if they can't drink? Like, some, sure, but, I mean, it's a main attraction. It is, it's Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So like, I couldn't do a concert. I mean, maybe you could do one concert that was alcohol-free, but you're not gonna do a concert and not be able to sell beer.
Yeah.
So Ben, will the fact that you're doing volleyball, will that take away from headquarters then?
I don't think so. They're sold out. Yeah, there's always a need for more, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, so kind of your answer to my question, Ben, kind of gets at what, concern I have, and I think I'm concerned about it, is that I don't think we need another bar. Basically that's what you're turning the ice arena into. It's a bar with ice, and I'm concerned about that because that impacts kids that skate there, and I assume there's a fair amount of Oregon kids in the school district that skate there through youth hockey and high school hockey and things like that. And it just seems like there's been a constant push to transform from a youth sports facility to being a bar, so you can make it. And I have a concern about that. And another concern I have is that, there are fire code violations, and it took a long time to get those taken care of. And then there was violations of the zoning with the limousines and the auto repair place, and I don't know what all, I don't recall all those right now, but why is that happening? I mean, why did you let that happen? I don't understand. I mean, it's not good management, I don't think. Why did you let that happen?
What?
Well, the limousine stored there, the auto repair, things that were in violation of zoning that you let go on and didn't take care of it until Jeff came down, took pictures, and said, you gotta fix this, or there's a problem. Why even let that happen?
Well, it wasn't an auto repair shop. It was a guy on our board, Mike, that he put brakes in a couple of his friends' cars. Like, it wasn't ever advertised as, hey, bring your car down here, we're gonna charge you this rate. It was more of just his friends, and he was helping out, like, he volunteered a lot of time down there, helping fix everything.
Yeah, and how about the limos? I mean, you allowed those to be stored there, and, I mean, the dumpster was put there with good intent, but it was in violation of zoning. Why did you allow that to happen? Why not ask Jeff if you can do those things? They're just doing it. It's like you kind of want to do what you want to do, and to heck with the rules.
I didn't know that it was a zoning violation to have cars parked there in our parking lot.
Okay.
Like, a lot of stuff I'm just learning about, as we move forward. You know, and that's why from all this, I've taken care of, you know, all the stuff that we need to take care of.
Yeah, and I will say again, it looks good. I mean, I was down there the day before the meeting to check and see what was done, and it's, each time I've stopped down, it's been a little better, and that's been good.
Yeah. And a lot of it's a function of money. I mean, really for us, like some of the fire stuff was, I mean, what was an exit sign? I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot, but at some points during the summer, $170 for a new sign, like, it's $170.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've done the stuff that we can do with what we have, and, you know, and it seems like it's starting to meet timelines, and like we're before November 1st, and the limos are gone.
Yeah. So my bringing up those things that weren't taken care of, and it may be, like you said, that you didn't know and you did it, and it seemed all right, you didn't know that it was wrong. But it creates a little worry going forward with making it a more complex operation and at a much higher level of concern with the alcohol. You know, volleyball leagues, a big part of that is drinking. I mean, that's why people go to bars, right? A lot of that's not necessarily good. And because some things weren't taken care of in the past, I'm concerned, will this bigger concern now, will that be taken care of the same way, or will it be taken care of the way it's supposed to be? I think it has been inside. That's all the reports I have. And that's good. But you go outside, what you're talking about, that makes it a whole bigger deal. And, I mean, you'd have to be on top of that and do it right, or it'd be very problematic. And again, I'm not interested in having another bar. You know, I don't always need a place for people to drink. Out in Wisconsin leads the nation and all sorts of bad things with alcohol. So I'll be quiet. Other thoughts?
What about Jen or Jeannie? You guys have any thoughts? Haven't heard anything in a while.
I mean, at the plan commission level, I feel comfortable with what we have pared this down to. Ben came in with, you know, a long list, and we worked with staff and said, that's not gonna fly, so we pared it down to what you have here. I'm comfortable with the things that we have on here. My concern is that the rink sticks with a time frame of making changes and working with permits so that you don't get behind again, because I don't think we like to be perceived as the bad guy. I don't think we try to be the bad guy. I want you to make sure that you are aware of everything that needs to happen to make sure your dream comes true.
Nightmares are dreams too.
Yeah, it's gonna have to start early if you want changes in your alcohol license, and I mean, like, seriously, start now for next spring and summer. I don't like to feel rushed. I don't feel like if we don't approve this, the ice rink is gonna go under. That's how I always feel when we talk about this. Like, if I don't approve this, I'm gonna be blamed for the ice rink going under. And that's not a great position to put people in. I don't wanna have to vote for something out of guilt. So those are my thoughts.
Appreciate that.
And actually, Jeannie's discussion there leads me to another thought, Ben, and that's regarding the alcohol once again. If that's something that is going to be paramount in your future plans, give this board as much advance notice as possible. If you're doing that tonight, that's fine. Make it a formal notice, because we're going to have to figure out what the village costs are going to be for that too, because we may need more police staff on the nights that you have events. So those will be costs for the village going forward too. So I guess I just asked for that courtesy.
What about you, Jen?
Oh, well, I guess, how do I put this? I never thought of the ice rink as a youth hockey place. I always thought it as like a sports arena. I go there for the Whalers games, and that's just how I've always viewed it. So this seems like progression in the direction that I thought it was already heading. So it's interesting to hear the background of, you know, that it was specifically for just youth sports at one time, and that. So, I mean, barring the hiccups of getting everything done, it sounds like you're willing to follow the rules when you know them, play ball, hopefully maybe be a little more proactive in the future as far as learning the rules before you make decisions, kind of to go on to Steve's point, right? So, right now it sounds like you're doing the right things, but I guess, like I said, I had a different perspective of the ice rink going into it, so, I don't know,
Have you been to a game this year?
not yet. We're very,
They're
but
so bad. Like 0-13 right now.
we
It's
have to go at like
embarrassing.
the 1 PM ones to bring our children, and so, you know, we only get to like 2 or 3 a year.
Yeah, there's only 2 Sunday games this year.
Yeah, so.
Any other thoughts? So how do you want to proceed tonight? Vote on the payment plan and have Mike take a look at, with Lisa, on what we can set aside, if anything? Get a
Sounds
payment
good,
plan?
yeah.
No, the resolution can come back at some point in time. If you make monthly payments, that's a show of good faith, so we can go from there.
Okay,
So we don't want it to cost you more money while you wait.
me either.
Okay. So what motion do we have before us?
It was just for discussion, Steve.
There's no motion pending.
Okay, so we could have a motion for a payment plan of 6 months and direct staff to come back to us with what they think would be the amount to be divided by 6.
Would that be per Mike's memo here?
Yeah, that's what I'm working off of.
Yeah. Okay, I'll second that.
Okay.
Yes, yep.
Okay.
No, I think actually Jeannie said for discussion. Yeah.
I heard to adopt.
Did you?
1715.
And that was seconded.
By me.
Okay, so you do have a pending motion, so, to approve the ordinance, so I guess you'd want to either table that or vote on it.
Okay.
I wrote down discussion.
Can we, Matt, can we amend it, that we pass it, dependent on the amount is paid by whatever, May 1st? Can we do that? And if it's not paid, then it doesn't take effect?
Yeah, so we did talk about that as part of this discussion. I could
Yeah.
modify the language in the ordinance to do it that way. And the direction the discussion went was, at least some people weren't comfortable doing that and wanted to. So I think that the way the discussion unfolded, as I had heard it, was table the ordinance, come back at the next meeting with a proposal for a payment plan.
Right.
And then, I think what I heard was that would be addressed, and if approved, the parties would move forward with that. And then I think, as I heard, at least some people on the board didn't want to even vote on the ordinance until those dollars are paid, which would mean we wouldn't be voting on that ordinance until it's paid. I don't know if that's 6
So
months.
we're just not taking a vote then? Are we tabling it, or what are
So,
we doing?
so I guess the question is, do you want to table this ordinance? And if so, how do you want to table it? You could table it to a date certain, or you could table it until such time as the fees owed the village are paid, but when tabling a motion, the best practice is to table it with some specificity as to when it would come back. So is it going to come back at your next meeting, or is it going to come back after the fees are paid, or when do you want, you could bring it back at your next meeting when you talk about the payment plan.
I'm interested, actually, to call the motion. I mean, Jeannie, you said the planning commission worked on this, and you got it pared down, and you're happy with the language.
Yeah.
Right.
So the
Yeah.
ordinance in front of you, though, requires that the fees be paid by November 1st, and if they're not, the ordinance is null and void.
Yeah, I understand.
Can't you just change that to May 1st?
You could, and that was one of the things we talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with that small amendment, we could call the motion and see what happens.
But that would be an easy amendment, easier than the other one we were talking about. So one potential approach would be for someone to move amending the ordinance to change the references to from November 1 to pick your other date. If that's approved, then you'd have a new ordinance in front of you. It's the same ordinance, but new dates. And then if they pay it faster than that, the ordinance takes effect if they pay it faster as soon as it's paid.
Just says by May 1, it doesn't say.
Right. If those conditions aren't satisfied by the deadline specified, then the ordinance goes away. If they are satisfied, then the ordinance takes effect.
I guess I would be comfortable with that. I don't know what everyone else feels.
it's still
Although there's
separate.
one fly in the ointment.
Or is this?
The fly in the ointment is that the
So
ordinance, the ordinance includes that dollar amount of
Right.
$5,289.42.
How about not to exceed?
No, it has to be, I can't do a not to exceed. I don't think that's going to be clear. Are you comfortable just making a recommendation on an amount tonight?
No.
No? Okay. So if you approve it tonight with that amount, then it's approved with that amount tonight. Now, you could choose at the next meeting to amend that ordinance and provide for a different amount. If you approve it with this amount tonight, you can always change that amount later. Although I got to be careful now. I don't want to set us up for restarting a zoning process where we have to have another.
So Matt, why can't
Remember,
we?
this is really complicated. This is a zoning ordinance. We've had class 2 notice, public hearing at the plan commission, now we're at the village board. So if you adopt it tonight in a certain way, and then we want to change it later, we got to start over.
Yeah.
We got to have another class 2 notice, we got to go back to the plan commission, even if it's just on that dollar amount.
So why not just table it?
Okay.
And I'll bring it back to the November 6th meeting with my proposal. That's for the payment plan.
That seems like the simplest
I
way.
think
Do you
that's.
need a motion to table?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I would make a motion that we table.
To your
Okay.
next meeting?
Yes,
Do we have a
I
second?
think does.
Second.
Okay.
So then the first motion just dies because we didn't take action on it?
Well, the first motion is now tabled. So the motion
I
to
see.
table is to table that pending motion.
I see.
Who was the second?
Jen.
John.
I guess I should say my name, not just.
Okay, so any discussion or questions on tabling? So basically, that puts us off to bring it back when it's more simple and more clear at the next meeting.
And specifically, timelines for paying back what's owed and the dollar amount that we're
Yeah.
going to ask for.
Yeah.
And if we're going to, the 5289, I'm guessing is the total dollar amount, but if we're going to propose changing that dollar amount, can we have just a quick little table of what?
Like a
all
breakout?
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
Thanks.
Yep.
Any further questions or comments? So we have the motion and second to table this to our next meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
That was the most complicated back and forth I've ever witnessed. How do
You should
keep
come to
it
more
straight?
meetings, Ben.
Holy buckets.
You weren't here for the downtown.
But actually,
discussion.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to
But
say that.
actually,
You're not.
that's a good example why this is why it gets complicated when you're doing a zoning change. It's just not a simple process of adopting a motion. It's-
That's why it costs so much.
Okay, so November 6th.
6th. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks,
Thank
Ben.
you.
We don't want to screw it up.
Yep.
Okay, that takes us to item 4, village attorney, village administrator report, discussion possible action regarding 2018 budget issues, and discuss agenda item 13E with the village attorney.
Is the levy adjustment, Mike?
Yeah, and
And we have folks here for that.
right. And so what this is that we are taking over Highway CC from the bridge out to Ash Street as of November 1st. I think Jeff Rowell talked about that when he was at
Yeah.
last, yeah. And so we have to do a levy adjustment on the actual levy worksheet that Lisa fills out and submits to the state. And we're just bringing this to your attention that we're going to propose that levy adjustment be $10,000. So it isn't we're proposing to raise the levy $10,000. We're going to actually, when Lisa does the worksheet, we're going to just put that $10,000 in there, probably take it out, the levy for the general fund. Kind of FYI, but then also realize that we cannot legally force the county, who should probably be technically reducing their levy by that amount, to do that. And Matt and I had a discussion with the Department of Revenue a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and there's really no mechanism for us to make the county do that. And I just want to make sure the board's aware of that, and I guess village residents as well. So, kind of confusing, but I just want, that's an important point, because we'll be doing this the next 2 times, and we take over Janesville Street and North Main. So,
So basically what you're saying is that taxpayers could be paying for it twice, once to the Dane County taxes and once to the village taxes.
Unless the Department of Revenue forces Dane County to reduce their levy. And of course, that's a countywide reduction,
Right.
but we have a village-only increase, potential.
yeah. Just a point of information.
Yay.
Yeah, yeah.
So any further questions on that? We're going to do 13A, right?
We did 13E, we're fine.
So 13A1 is all done?
That's later on.
Okay, but we've got all the cable TV folks.
Could we do the village attorney
Oh,
report?
I'm sorry, I thought that.
That's okay.
This agenda's way too long.
I know. I'm telling you, that guy, we're gonna find
It's way
him.
too many pages.
I know. Well, I wondered in case there
Okay,
were
yeah.
questions about the Department of Revenue.
Okay,
that's why.
yeah, so we have to finish item 4 with the attorney here, then we'll go to cable TV. So,
Yep. Yep.
we did
4A.
Okay, so we'll go to B, discussion of possible action, Legend Hills at Bergamot, lots 1 through 15. Original agreements were approved at the special July 31st, 2017 board meeting. The following are revised agreements. 1, discussion of possible action, water main easement agreement for Legend Hills at Bergamot. Recommend a motion, approval of water main easement agreement for Legend Hills at Bergamot. Do I have a
I
motion?
make that motion.
Thank you.
So I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion from staff? Any information, I should say?
Well, this, you all have seen this before. This is like a 15-lot subdivision where a lot of the complication came into play because there was already a street there and the developer didn't want to put the utilities in the street itself, so we had a lot of discussion about letting them put it in the front yards. And this basically now is the culmination of that process, and these easement agreements to some extent address basically putting the water and sewer infrastructure in locations that are accessible, that deal with that issue.
This one is the water main easement.
Yeah, well, so the water main easement is over, that runs parallel.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Parallel to lot 1, and it's part of the golf course property as well.
Right, so we need, we needed an easement for that, and then the restrictive, I'll just do them all so you know what they all are. The restrictive covenant and easement agreement, basically, we're requiring that they locate driveways serving these individual lots in a way that will give our public works crew access to the sewer manhole covers.
Right.
And this requires that people who buy homes in the subdivision keep their driveways in the right locations so that we have continuing access to the sewer main. There's only, I think, 4 lots affected
Yeah, there are 4 lots.
by that. And so, again, you previously approved an agreement for these lots, but because of some requested changes.
But that was with the bike trail.
Well, that was where we had the bike trail there, yeah, and we've taken that out, right?
That's gone. This is a lot better solution.
So we took the bike trail out of the front yards, instead of having a
This
bike
is
trail.
better.
Yeah, instead of having a bike trail go through everyone's front yard, we have a standard sidewalk, regular driveways.
4 manholes.
And 4 manholes that we have access to next to the driveways. And that saved them a lot of money, I guess, in putting
And
in,
it's better for us too.
yeah, so that's
Nobody wants to bike up that hill anyway.
probably right.
There is truth to that. Yeah.
Okay,
I'm sure that
so
was
any
clear.
questions
And we got-
following that?
And then we got that
As
last.
Matt said, this was before us much earlier too, so. Okay, so we have the motion second to approve the water main easement agreement for Legend Hills at Bergamot. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And
Thank you.
Candy, I'm gonna abstain from 4A1 through 3, just because I own a lot in there.
Okay.
And Jerry, are you voting, Jerry?
Yes, aye.
Okay, thank you.
So the next one is the restrictive
Sorry.
covenant.
Yeah.
4B 1 through 3, I misspoke.
So 2, the restrictive covenant and easement agreement, recommend a motion is approval of those things for Legend Hills at Bergamot.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
This is the driveways with the manhole covers. That's what this one is.
That's all we need to know, right?
That's all you need to know.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? With 1 abstention. Thank you.
And then one more agreement.
Yep. On the amended and restated agreement for land division improvements and Bergamot development, so the recommended motion, approval of amended and restated agreement for land division improvements, Bergamot development, Legend Hill at Bergamot, lots 1 through 15.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Again, this is the standard development agreement for this phase of development, which includes some special provisions relating to the driveways with the sewer main.
Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item C, review of TIF 4 properties, discussion possible action on a resolution number 17-34, State Trust Fund loan for financing the purchase and redevelopment of the motel property at 1053 Park Street in TIF 4 in the amount of $600,000 with an interest rate of 4% for 15 years. The recommended motion is to approve resolution number 17-34.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Thank you.
We increased the amount because we had to, Jeff and I took a tour of it last week Thursday, and even though we actually think a lot of the asbestos has been cleaned up, we have to assume there's going to be asbestos, and it could be, as we learned with the church, the building coming down, it could be an expensive endeavor, so we wanted to have some cushion to take the building down.
Okay.
Mike, could you give a little overview of what we're talking about? Because there's some confusion in the community regarding this
I know
site
you're-
that the village
I know
just
you're saying.
purchased.
Yeah.
And then the anticipator, the
Hotel.
project on the Quail property.
Yeah, I know, thank you. Actually, I came up, we were touring, people there
If you
thought.
could just explain the difference.
Yeah, well, in defense of people that are confused, this is where the last hotel project was gonna go, so I can understand why people are confused. But no, the new hotel is gonna go next to the janitor gun shop that's on the other side of the street. We're just buying this property and closing on it, and at some point, remove the building, and we'll offer it up for redevelopment to a developer. And who knows what's gonna go in, we'll see what happens, sometime hopefully in the springtime.
Thank you. I've had
I know, it's confusing.
comments on that,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yep.
So any questions or comments? So we have a motion second to approve resolution number 17-34, which is financing the purchase and redevelopment of motel property at 1053 Park Street in TIF 4, $600,000, interest rate of 4% for 15 years. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 2, that motel property, the village administrator and director of public works toured the property on October 19th, and are currently having the required survey and phase 1 completed by MSA Engineering.
Yep.
Okay, item 3, discussion of possible action regarding property management contract for motel property. Recommend a motion to authorize the village attorney to prepare a contract for property management of motel property for the board's consideration.
So move.
Second.
Thank you. We've talked about this before. Any questions or comments?
There is no agreement between the current manager and the owner, so we're gonna have to draft one, and it's not a big deal. Actually, I think he seems like a good guy and taking care of the place, so I have no problem.
Good.
And the
Okay.
fact he knows everyone, it just makes sense to have some continuity
Yeah.
at the property,
Okay. Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And point of information for recreational concepts property, per the board's direction, staff notified recreational concepts that the village board consider the counteroffer of $450,000 from the Magellan Family LLC for the property at 1075 Park Street, but decided to decline the counteroffer.
And we communicate that to them, so
Yeah.
they know that.
Yep. So now we can go to
Now you can go down to the budget, Steve.
the 13th and then back. Okay, so we will go to item 13, the 2018 budget update and possible action regarding following budget items. Item A, cable TV, and there's a note that cable TV committee may have a quorum at the meeting. This is page 35A in our budget book, and discussion of possible action regarding creation of fund balance for equipment purchases, and trustee Bolling requested to have this item back on the agenda. So if anyone wants to come forward for that, feel free to do so.
And what,
Thanks, Matt.
And what we're referring to is, if you go into your budget book, it's actually on the budget that Kermit submitted to us. See the next page. There you go, Steve. At the bottom, they're saying set aside for purchases $5,000.
Yeah,
And when Jerry, I think, talked to me the day or two after they,
Right, that kind of 5,000 just kind of fell through the
Yeah.
cracks.
and I think,
Yeah.
I don't mean to speak for you, Jerry, but I think Jerry's idea is that rather than giving them the money, we would just, in our budget, just create that fund balance and just keep the money in the village's budget instead.
And wouldn't you say, we've never had this exact conversation, but wouldn't you say that you've sort of been doing that for many years?
Well, we have a fund balance, but we haven't in detail said this money is being set aside for equipment. We just have a fund balance in that fund. Jeff, so.
Yeah, and what's that fund balance at right now?
It was 163 at the end of 2016.
There we go.
And Mike, is that the cable franchise fees?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so those are cable franchise fees that can only be used for cable channel?
You can use them for whatever you want, but we keep them separate in a special fund. And we typically spend most, if the village wanted to.
We can use them for whatever we want?
Sure.
That
Yeah.
doesn't really seem fair to the cable.
Well,
channel.
I'm answering your question.
Okay, yep, that's good.
I'm-
I did not know that. I thought they had to be used. I thought it was just a pass-through.
No, no. You could use them for, well, we've used them for buying mics and things for the boardroom, things like that, for technology. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. It was a lot different in the past when, in the late 80s and 90s, when the village or city had control over cable TV fees. There was actually a very strong agreement we had between the cable company and the community, and it was laid out usually in that agreement how the fees had to be spent. All that's gone. But 99% of the money goes to the cable TV committee and fund. So, but I want to be clear that
That's good. I did
you
not
could
know
actually
that.
spend it on what you would want. It's up to the board's discretion.
You guys have
Comments from cable TV folks?
Are we ready to begin the joint meeting? I've not been allowed to talk until now.
That's why I just called on you.
Thank you very much. This is, I'm John Bonsonville. I'm president of Oregon Cable Access Foundation, and I'd like to call our joint meeting together open, and we'll start with a roll call. And so I would invite all the cable members to give their name and their role with cable, please. Paul?
Paul Zwicker, program coordinator.
Carmen Traskas, secretary treasurer.
Jeff Boudreau, board liaison.
Good, and welcome to all of you.
I will pass the microphone over to both Kermit and Paul in just a moment. But I do want to respond to the knowledge now that the franchise fee, which I had presumed for the past 27 years to be the sole purpose of sponsoring cable, can be used for anything at the board's discretion. I find that a little, I don't know if the right word is unsettling, but I would hope that the board would hold true to the purpose by which those funds were set aside and allow it to, for whatever reason it is used, be used for the purposes of supporting our foundation and our cable. Because, quite frankly, those funds wouldn't have been available to the village had cable not been founded. So that's my request, that's my insight, that's my observation. I hope you take it in the spirit in which it's intended. It's not meant to be vindictive in any way, just analytical, and that's my hope.
Yeah,
So-
I think the fact we didn't know we could use it and we haven't, we probably won't start. I think you're safe.
Well, I just by way of full transparency and wanting to be responsible and a good member of our village and our community, I just wanted to make that statement. That's my intention.
Sure, that's
All right.
fine.
Thank you. And that being said, now I'm going to turn this over to our treasurer, Kermit, and our program. No. What's your new title? Executive Director.
Well, I believe that had been passed.
I think so.
We retitled me.
Oh, wait a minute. I think that has to go with the bylaws. We're working on
Yes, we don't approve bylaws.
No, I'll turn this over to Kermit.
Welcome, Paul and Kermit.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, it wasn't a surprise to me that there wasn't a requirement that the money go to cable TV. Not having been involved in the 90s and in the early 2000s, public law changed that had to do with cable franchise fees and some requirement that, if the village got the money, it would go to village or school television. And that's what it's been pretty much used for over the time. And I think the question, over the years, we've come back with requests for replacement or additional equipment. And perhaps, Jerry, that's what you were getting at, that you want that oversight for when we make a bigger expenditure.
Right.
And what we proposed in our budget this year was, we've been getting $112,000 a year, that we still get that allocation in quarterly disbursements as we have been, but we would set aside $5,000 a year for like a major purchase fund. And there are cameras that need replacing that are $2,000 or $3,000 that, you know, in a year we could do that. So, you know, whether you hold the funds and we have to come back and ask for that $2,000 when the camera needs replacing or whatever, puts an additional step into that funding program. Certainly we can do that, and the council has been very gracious in providing that in the past. But then on the management of that, we've been diligent in staying within our budget and managing it appropriately. And I think, you know, if you were to assign those duties to us, we would do that in the future as well.
And if I could give a little bit of background, the Oregon Cable Access Commission has really spent a lot of time taking a look at the fact that all of our equipment has a depreciable life, similar to the fire department. And Tom has created this amazing spreadsheet where he spread every piece of equipment and estimated the usable life of that piece of equipment and when it's going to need to be replaced. And I believe Tom shared that with the board at an earlier meeting. If he did, he certainly could. But I think this is it's really exciting and energetic, and it's an energetic moment for me to see the Cable Access Commission kind of turn this corner and say, we're not going to ask for any more money from the village, but what we're going to do is, it's just as if this was our own company, we're going to reserve monies that we get from the village to make sure that when these pieces of equipment, everything from cable to cameras to tripods, et cetera, when these pieces of equipment reach their usable life, we will be responsible for replacing those, as opposed to putting it on the village to try to figure out how to replace the equipment. Now, for this to work, you would have to have a board overseeing this process, and you do. You have the Cable Access Board and the Cable Access Foundation. And if the village board were comfortable, it's a way for the Cable Access Board and Foundation to be more responsible for their own balance sheet. Obviously, if the board's not comfortable with that, giving them that oversight, certainly the board should do what it feels is in the best interest of the village. But I strongly support this initiative. Cable Access negotiated this move to the high school, and it's brought with it a whole slew of benefits that I didn't anticipate. But one of those benefits is it was a cost-saving measure which allowed the board to operate more efficiently and to create this gap. And so that's why the board brought this forward the way it did.
And actually, I can add to that a little bit. I wasn't alluding that the funds are being used improperly. It just was an unusual thing when compared to past years, to all of a sudden have an item there for $5,000 not earmarked.
Yep.
And I don't know, for one, I think, you know, since the village receives these funds designated from all the cable users in the village, I think it's a good practice to have it pass through the village so that the funds can be monitored. And, you know, I'm not saying that they haven't been used properly in the past. I'm just saying the more eyes on cash, the more eyes on a transaction, there's never a chance for impropriety then. And one other point too, this year, a little differently, I don't think cable TV pays rent any longer, do they?
Yep,
What do you do?
sure. $4.
How much?
$4.
Okay, you used to pay like 15
But
grand?
we paid that in advance.
Okay. Did you have to take out a loan for that? No.
But to that point though, Jerry, I just want to add that that was the board sitting down and saying, hey, guys, we've got to get smarter about our money. How can we save money so that we can start to set aside cash reserves to take care of this equipment? And it was out of that conversation that Paul started to look for other places that we could rent that would be cheaper. And it was from that Paul and the school got together. So there's a train of logic that
Oh,
got
yeah.
us to that place.
Makes perfect sense.
Dr.
because-
Bustler was the word I was
Yeah.
trying to spit out.
You want to spit it out?
I did, Dr. Bustler.
But anyway, no, that's a good move because you do so many events over at the school. But again, my point was gonna be, you were paying, what, 12, 13 grand a year in rent?
Originally, it was about 12.
Yeah, 12, and now you're paying $4, so you have more money, just in the fact that you're not paying rent. And then, you know, when I saw that $5,000 just hanging there, it was like, oh, wait, where's the 12 grand going now? So, again, I just think when it comes to public funds, the more eyes on a transaction, the better it is for everybody, that's all. I'm not saying there's any impropriety or anything like that. You guys are doing a great job.
So maybe, Kermit, if you wouldn't mind talking about where the 7,000 difference is.
The 7,000 difference, there's been some equipment upgrades that we've done ourselves and had to pay for them, and quite a bit of this is taken up in staff, technical staff. Paul, when he came on board, added commercial video making to the program. Tim Olson, going to college, coming back, and of course Dan Sutter, been around for a long time, and the work they've done. All of the workers are part-time. When the program started, it was Liz Harlow and some students, and we've evolved over the time to more staffing, and that includes Paul, Dan, Tim, and Frank Caruso, more in the active video program, myself as treasurer, and then we've got about 6 to 10 high school kids that are part-time. And as we've added hours for them, staying under 30 hours a week for people, and even less for, I think, most of them, because of those limits. So some of that $7,000 has gone into staffing and taken up some of that as well. But we wanted to keep our eye on the future and make sure that the equipment needs were being taken care of as well. So that, for instance, the request before you tonight is almost $25,000. And that's the important part, that's the broadcasting that gets the message out to the people.
And you've never been denied funds when you've asked for it?
That's right.
Okay.
Since I've been involved, every request that has come forward has been approved by the board.
If I may, part of my coming on, I've been tasked with bringing in some revenue towards that end, and we are currently working with a couple of partners in the village, trying to get some business videos for their website, and trying to get that part of OCAmedia started as a small local production house, video production house, that will help us sustain ourselves as well as help the local business community. I also have brought into this position a level of expertise that frankly didn't exist before I arrived. The quality has gone up in my mind tremendously. Our productions I'm trying to increase in number and in quality, and that includes bringing on some students who are bringing very little talent to it and training them. So the time I put into the local high school kids, the time I put into my own staff, and the excess hours that I put into this job have all brought OCAmedia to a higher level. which I think reflects on the community. I hope it does. I'm bringing all that forth because I believe in this, and I believe that it's always going to be moving forward, and I'd like it to keep on doing that. It requires equipment. I've been doing what I can with what I have, but we have to update, and we have to update, and that means finding $1,600 from the local youth basketball program to donate that money towards a piece of equipment that will help us broadcast basketball games better with a live scoreboard. That also means digging into our own funds to get some equipment to help install fiber in the high school gymnasium so we can run cables in the flooring, not on top of the floor, where we have to tape them down every time we do a ball game. And the interfaces to our cameras for that fiber optic cabling. We're future-proofing the gymnasium, we're future-proofing a lot of places that we want to be able to broadcast from and do a good job.
And I do want to recognize the work that Paul's done. And Kermit, please correct me if I'm wrong, because my memory really is not all that great. But when I first came on board, I don't believe we really had any revenue from underwriting, or it was close to nothing, if I'm right.
Close to nothing.
And year to date, Paul's got us at almost $7,700. This is in just the 3 short years that I've been there. And I know that we were doing sales of tapes and DVDs at the time, but in my gut, I'd feel like maybe we were half, selling maybe $700-800 a year worth, and now we're doing about $2,000 a year to date. So Paul's put a lot of work into raising revenue, again, with the idea of balancing our own income statement so that the cable access is a wise steward of the monies that it's getting from the village, and not just expecting that the village is always going to be there to write a check. And I think that's important to highlight, because when I first joined the cable access, I kind of had to go through this process of understanding, and that's where I am today. And so the reason I'm trying to express as much as I can is so that you can all see it through my eyes a little bit. As a steward of the village, I feel like they're doing an outstanding job with the money that they've got, and continue to do better.
Another point, we've been kind of sticking on the video here, but if you are connected to Facebook, we have Facebook updates probably a couple times a day. And it's just called Oregon, Wisconsin. And then go to Oregon YouTube videos. And it's amazing what you can see, what's happened in the village, you can see on YouTube through the Oregon channel. And we put that there. So that's how it's getting out. How many people watched graduation? Live streaming, not in the gymnasium, but Tim Olson would have those figures. As far as live streaming football games, graduation, the village board meeting, school board meeting. I think it was last week or week before, we had village board and school board going at the same time.
It's happening tonight, too.
And so,
Can I interrupt for just a moment?
no interruption.
If I could have the floor for a moment. There's a time-critical and maintenance-critical situation that has developed with our Telecaster. This is one of the issues why we're before you tonight. Our Telecaster is the piece of equipment that creates the signal that gets distributed broadcast. And then that signal is later received and can be translated into your televisions. And you watch the TV based upon that. Our Telecaster is failing, and it is putting off immense amounts of heat. And our benefactor, Andy Weiland, has informed us that their HVAC system can no longer manage it, and we have to immediately replace the Telecaster, or we are looking at not being able to maintain our position in the high school. This is time critical. And how much is the Telecaster?
It's a $16,000 unit.
I think moved ahead on the agenda item.
Yeah, that's next, John.
Dang.
Let's get this one done first.
Okay, you go ahead and talk.
So I want to go back to 13A1 on the creation of the fund balance for equipment purchases, be $5,000. Do we have a motion for that?
I'll make a motion for that.
Thank you.
And that's gonna be kept on the village,
Yes,
Yeah.
what's the motion, please?
yeah,
To create the creation of a $5,000 fund balance for equipment purchases for cable TV.
in the village budget.
Okay.
That's what you want,
Is
right?
is that Jenna, that was your
Yeah,
motion?
Jenna
Okay.
seconded that, yeah.
So those will be restricted, those will be reflected as restricted funds in the villages.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they come to us on those funds.
No, I think.
No, like the village
They'll,
can't spend
they'll,
on it.
yes, they'll be set aside.
Yeah.
But I'm not using the term sinking fund because Lisa doesn't like that term,
No.
so they're set aside.
Yeah.
Fund balance.
Fund balance, yeah, fund
Term
balance.
sunk.
But basically, they're sinking fund.
Is that once a year or quarterly?
That's annual.
Yeah, but would you take that at one time off, or would you reduce the amount quarterly by that amount? The 5,000 for the year?
What do you think, Lisa?
Probably just annually put it into the, I mean, it really wouldn't matter, because if you're building it up, right, you wouldn't be spending any of it. I thought that was the intention, is to build it
But I
up.
think what Kermit's saying is, let's say you're gonna give them $30,000 for each quarter, and then you know, are you gonna take,
5 off the first one?
yeah,
That would impact
that's
us.
what he's asking.
What's the best way to set it aside, Kermit, from the budget?
Quarterly,
Quarterly?
yeah.
So 3 even
I'll explain.
distributions?
4.
4 even quarterly.
Aren't you a
What bank
banker,
you work
Jeff?
at?
That's
Is it beer 30 yet?
I want a loan and I want to pay it quarterly.
Usually
4 even distributions totaling 5,000. Yeah.
1250.
We'll
Does
do
that
it,
work, Lisa?
Well, typically, when you close something out to a fund balance, it's done at the end of the year. I mean, it won't appear on your operating statement that you see in our budget. It's on the balance sheet.
I think what Kermit's concern is, how often can he get the money?
No, I know that's quarterly, but if for
There-
one quarter I miss $5,000
that's what he's
instead
worried
of
about.
$1,250,
Yeah. It's a big chunk.
when you're only working with $25,000 in the quarter, it makes a difference.
Yeah.
We're gonna take $5,000 away from you versus giving it to you, and we're gonna take the balance and give you a check for each quarter. That's what you're looking for, a balanced check for each quarter.
Yeah,
That's what you're asking.
right.
Yep, that's what we're gonna
Okay.
do.
Okay.
Yep,
Oh, how it's gonna affect your payment?
yep,
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
yep.
I didn't understand
Yep.
what you were asking.
And
Kermit
may I
had us
just
confused.
ask, so I understand how if permit goes away someday, when I need a piece of equipment, I come
Yep.
before, so does that include a computer? At what level am I asking for money?
Well,
When we
let me
when we
start that.
Start tapping our budget
That
dry?
we know what that amount is going to be, and we'll only come with that amount for the year.
You have, I mean, you seem that you've got money in.
There's other money for
You
equipment
got
in the budget.
$5,000 for computers already in the budget,
Right.
for example.
Yeah.
Just-
So for example, if all of a sudden everything crashed and you wanted to, you would come to the village board and say, we were requesting to use some of the allocated $5,000 for whatever the
And,
equipment.
and if we don't use that in a year, it rolls
Just
to
goes-
the next.
That was the plan, was to let it.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
just wanted.
It goes
Now,
into
you
the
don't
fund.
use it, it rolls over.
Thank you.
So
Yep.
it builds up
Yep.
as a fund balance.
Correct.
Any other questions on that? Okay, so we have a motion and a second
Thanks,
to,
Jerry, for bringing that up.
create a fund balance of $5,000 for equipment purchases for cable TV. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
So
Motion carries.
Jerry moved and Jenna seconded, right?
Okay, now we're on to the item that John started out, discussion possible action. Oregon Cable Access proposal to purchase new broadcast equipment in amount of $16,216 plus $8,730 for service warranty for years 2 through 5, and the funding would come from cable TV fund balance, which is total $163,137 as of 12/31/16.
So
Make
moved.
that motion, or I'll second it. Jeff made it.
So that's 24,946 if I'm adding right. Somebody might want to double check that.
Yeah, check it. So John, did you have more you wanted to say on that? Sounds like a piece you have to have.
Okay, here's the thing. I'm sorry that I didn't read the agenda thoroughly enough.
That's all right.
And I apologize for interrupting and interfering, but I want to thank you all for your support and how much I appreciate that, so,
Thanks.
on the record.
Thanks, John.
Jumping ahead wasn't a problem. I jump all over and don't know what I'm doing either, so it's not
But
an
I'm
issue.
not the president of the village board.
So any further questions or comments on this?
Can I just make
Yeah.
is this a piece of equipment that you would have had to replace anyway? Okay, I'm just concerned, I don't want you to be in a position where the school is starting to dictate what you have to do. Is that
No,
not the position?
This is a piece of equipment we got used, hand-me-down,
Okay,
15 years ago or more. It's very much obsolete, and it's been repaired twice. Its replacement with the same company would cost $40,000 if it was the same equipment manufacturer to replace this unit. We're going with one that has a good track record, expensive support for 5 years, but from what I understand from Stoughton Cable and others, if we do not get that support, they do not answer the phone calls. And it changes. I mean, software updates change. We need the support as well.
so you're under the belief that you need this piece of equipment too? You're not being told that you have to have it?
We needed it a long time ago.
Okay, that's all I'm concerned about.
What he just said.
Okay, good.
Any further questions or comments? Okay, so we have the motion and second to approve Oregon Cable Access purchase of new broadcast equipment in the amount of $16,216 plus $8,730 for service warranty for years 2 through 5. This comes from cable TV fund balance. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, you're all set.
Thank you.
We should adjourn then.
Okay, call a motion to adjourn the cable meeting.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank
And
you.
ladies. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, have a good evening. So now we're back to item 5.
Oh, you keeping track of this?
I'm not. Hope for the best. Okay, so we are on item 5, approval of vouchers. We have vouchers tonight in the amount of $436,673.63 for approval.
Move approval.
Second.
Questions?
Jerry, really? Come on.
I looked twice, there's just nothing in it. Already. Lisa's, taking good care of the questionable ones.
Or you must have skipped over something.
Anybody else have questions? Okay, so we have motion second for vouchers, the amount of $436,673.63. Roll call, please.
Jacobson? Yes.
Pollock?
Yes.
Carpenter? Yes.
Boudreaux?
Yes.
Brenhauer?
Yes.
Staton?
Yes.
And Grenier?
Yes.
Thank you. That carries. Item 6 is community input. Is there anyone here who would like to address the board? Seeing none, we'll go to item 7, proclamations and announcements. Item A, are there any board comments? Hearing none, we'll go to item B, staff comments. Looks like it's your turn, Mike.
So trick or treat hours are the 31st from 5 to 8. And then there was a memo from Jeff in the plastic folder about Jefferson Street, about paving. You want Jeff to talk about that, or?
Yeah, why don't you make some comments about Jefferson Street for the public, please, Jeff?
Yeah, Jefferson Street, we are looking at a developing kind of sinking area that is parallel and kind of following the same pattern of a directional drill bore installation of 12-inch water main. Normally, this doesn't happen. The contractor's been made aware of it. They're coming out this Friday to what they call pothole, dig down a few small holes in some areas to see if they find a void along this route. And so we're continuing to take a look at it, but that's why it hasn't been paved over and fixed. It's right over just west or east of the railroad viaduct. So we're looking at that, but yes, we will get that fixed before winter and ice hit us. Then Jefferson, Alpine Parkway, out there, the contractor's continuing to move ahead. I just learned this afternoon that they would like to shut down Alpine Parkway again for a day or a day and a half to run the sewer across there this next Thursday or Friday, and we'll be having that noticed. And then ideally, they're going to be coming in to put the curb on that median cut, and we'd like to see that wrapped up in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So there'll probably be another closure when they come down to clean up and be ready to pave that area across there.
Okay.
Are they putting the sewer through in the part that they already tore up, I hope? Is it a different part of the road?
It's a little different part of the area.
Man,
Yeah.
it's such a nice road. Now I have to slow down for these bumps and gravel. It's really cutting into my commuting time.
Think of them as
For the
jumps.
record, she just admitted she's speeding.
Not really, just saying it's cutting
My
into.
wife's not happy about it either. so
Okay.
it's okay.
Although, Jeff, have you been adding gravel to that, or is the developer doing that?
The one out on Alpine Parkway has
Yeah.
been the developer's responsibility, and I've contacted them maybe 3 or 4 times and asked them
Okay.
to do that. Just when people call, and I've been trying to drive out there too. People do need to slow down going through it. It is a bump and stuff, so. And then the one over on Jefferson Street. We've been monitoring that, and I've been having Public Works put some gravel down when it gets a little more rutted out.
Okay. Item 3, upcoming meetings.
So I guess the first one that's not on here is this Thursday, we're having the public forum on the downtown driveway aisle issue that they were in front of us a couple meetings ago. So we're gonna just meet in here and we'll probably have a board that size over there and, meet with the downtown property owners and probably some people that live in the area. We may or may not go and walk over there, it depends on
Yeah.
how this goes.
It's at 5:30, right?
5:30, yep,
Okay.
in the room, yep, in this room.
Has that been noticed as a board meeting?
Yeah,
In
yes.
case there's a quorum, okay, good.
Yep. Mhm. Yep. And then we've got the next board meeting, we're going to be bringing the November 6th, banking RFP. The 20th, that would be the hearing for the budget and looking at the capital improvement plan. December 4th board meeting. And then we're looking at a December 11th board meeting, a special meeting to review the lift station analysis that we're working on. That'd be at 5 o'clock for the east side of Highway 14, so hopefully you could make it. It's the second Monday of the month. Okay. And then December 18th, that is when we'll bring the food pantry request back to the board.
Okay, good. Any questions on those meetings? You should go to item 8, communication and miscellaneous business. Item A, review of school resource officer reports and summary of major crimes. Chief, any comments you'd like to make there?
The only comment I would like the board to realize again is the things that we've been talking about. It takes up a lot of our time on major crimes. As you see on here, we continue to see our fair share of domestic disturbances and OWIRS. We seem to have an absorbent amount of those, and that does take a lot of staff time. So just to keep you apprised on that. Otherwise, I'm happy to answer questions on either of those.
So I just have one question, and I don't want to poke the bear, Chief, so if you think we're going to go down that road, just let me know. But I see on September 7th, 456 North Perry Parkway, September 19th, 456 North Perry Parkway, September 27th, 456 North Perry Parkway. Is there anything that we need to know, actually September 19th, 456, September 19th, 456, is there anything that we need to know or that you want us to know about that particular address, that it keeps coming up so many times?
That's
Is it-
Oregon High School.
Oh, that's the high school?
That's the high
Yeah.
school.
Well, we need to really keep a close eye on the high school.
I think we should close it down.
We
That's
should
why
shut it
we have
down.
a school resource officer.
That's all you need to know.
Oh, yeah, thank you very much, that's outstanding, now I know where the high school is.
That's
Right down
Paulink's
the
house.
street.
Yeah, thanks.
And Officer Shuey stays
Where would that
busy.
be without GPS?
There's no doubt, so good for him. I
And
hear-
if you look at the school resource officer weekly update, you'll see he's busy.
Yeah, yeah. And I hear good things about what he does, so
Yeah.
that's good. He's also at the middle school in Arshai and then some meet the cop type of things at elementary schools, so good for him. It's a good guy to do that. Any questions on any of those things? Now that we know where the high school is.
We know the exact address.
So 456 North Prairie Parkway.
I have that memorized now, that's amazing.
Glad you brought that up.
Well, actually, and they go in a row, 4, 5, 6. So, as long as I can get past 3, I'm in good shape.
Yeah,
Good point,
that's my
Jeff.
neighborhood too. I'm really worried now. All the
I'm
problems
glad it
that
wasn't
they
your
have.
address.
Yeah, that's 456 Orchard Drive. That's close.
Chief, you had mentioned that, and it shows here we have a lot of domestic disturbances. Would you say our percentage compared to the state, are we tracking higher, same, lower?
I'd say we're about the same. It
Okay.
just seems like,
Just not
it's
good.
just one of those calls that takes up a lot of our time and resources.
Yeah.
Especially when, all those heated situations, when you're dealing with domestic partners, that type of thing, and family members, it just takes a lot of time, and I've always said it's one of those types of calls that is our most dangerous call, because we just don't know what's gonna happen in those types of incidents, so.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thanks. Okay, so go to item 8B, discussion of preparing memorandum of understanding between the village board and library board. The first ad hoc meeting is October 24th, tomorrow at 11 a.m. in Village Hall Boardroom.
We're meet here, and then I think our idea is that we will be giving a regular report, right, Jeannie and Steve, to the
Yeah.
full board about what's going on, so you can, I think like we have a draft work plan, and I'll put that on a future agenda so you can
Yeah.
keep the board in the loop on it, yeah.
Yeah. Jeannie and I are the representatives on that ad hoc committee, so we will be there. Any questions? Item C, discussion of possible action regarding Vanderwall's proposal for TID number 5 gap analysis of business expansion. The recommended motion is to approve a $500 fee for Vanderwall's initial TIF gap analysis of Ticey's possible expansion in Alpine Business Park. There's a note, this would allow Dan Johns from Vanderwall to prepare the initial TIF spreadsheet of the Ticey expansion for review by the village board.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Anything more than what that says?
It's just that Jason's looking at, is expanding, one of the initial things that we usually do is the consultant does the initial spreadsheet on the gap analysis, and then he'll come and meet with the board and go through it. And also, obviously, also share it with Jason as well.
Do they do the same kind of analysis that Ellers does?
Yep. I will tell you, if you're wondering why I'm doing this with Vanderwall,
Yeah,
they're better turnaround, quicker turnaround.
okay.
Yeah, I hate to say it, I like using Ellers, but they're just, the last couple times Lisa and I had to try to drag the information, they're just so busy. And Vanderwall has 2 people dedicated to doing this, so, and I think they did some of the analysis on the facade grants for us. So, and honestly, if the board goes through this and would prefer to go back to Ellers, you just tell me that, I'll be happy to do that, but I want to use Vanderwall for a while if we could.
Okay.
So, yep.
I think it's okay to use multiple people too.
Right.
Go back and forth.
Yep.
I think that's fine.
Yep.
Can you tell me why are they building there? Expansion? That's not beside their shop, is it?
So they looked at trying to do something on their current property and it just didn't work out, so they're now looking at a completely new site.
Okay.
Yep. It doesn't mean this is gonna happen, a lot depends on what happens with the TIF process, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? So we have motion second to approve Vanderwall for the initial TIF gap analysis for Ticey's possible expansion in Alpine Business Park. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you for that.
You bet. Item D, discussion possible action regarding cemetery software purchase. The recommended motion is to approve the contract with Raymaker and Associates in the amount of $10,315 for cemetery information management system, cloud implementation for the Prairie Mound Cemetery. This includes 2 full licenses, web hosting updates, and system support fees for 1 year. Also approve village staff to hire an LTE in 2018 for up to 480 hours for input of the cemetery data.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
I'll just try to be brief. I fairly detailed in my memo there, but when I started here, and one of the challenging things, I had not been a cemetery caretaker or sexton before, and so that was this was a new process for me. And we keep very, very good records at the village, and I'm very proud of that. And I know it's been a system that we've had in place for a long time. but it's a little cumbersome. It's all paper, and we don't have a lot of room for information. And so one of the things that I looked into is how can we automate this a little better? And this is just I did quite a bit of research on this, and I spoke to many neighboring communities with similar cemeteries, and they all use this program. We had to come out and demo it. It allows us to, at least for the time being, would just be able to build it for internal use. So we can be able to search by name. We can actually import and scan documents, just standard like a GIS-based system. The only thing that is a little unique in this is, they can build the map and they can build the program, but it's populating the data with all the populating this database with all the information that makes it challenging. And quite honestly, I mean, right now, staffing-wise, we don't have the ability to be able to do that, and I don't have the time to be able to do that. So Raymaker was willing to import our old database, which is 10 years old, 12 years old probably, for about $5,700. And our view with that is that was not an economical use, just because a 10-year-old database is 10 years old. Thank you. So
That's pretty tricky.
right, exactly. Anyone want to guess what a 12-year-old database is?
3.
Right. It's be hosted at 456 Northbury Park. But
Your time is running out. just so you know.
I know.
Wrap it up, Jeff.
I'm here all night. So anyhow, I think this is a great step ahead. This is something actually we had in last year's budget for $12,000, and then adding in 2018 we have an LTE. Basically, someone who can come in for approximately 480 hours, and their sole job would be to import data and see us how far we can get with that amount. I think if we get someone who's good, they'll be able to import a very large percentage of it.
Okay. Questions or comments?
Yeah.
So we have the motion to purchase the cemetery information management system and an LTE to input data. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item E, the village's new sign code has been selected to receive a 2017 Planning Excellence Award from the American Planning Association, Wisconsin chapter. That certainly speaks well of Mike Slavety, who was involved in that, our planning commission, the village board, and staff for being involved. I think it's important to note that, says the jury commented that this is a very exciting project that will have a lasting effect on the village of Oregon. As other communities' ordinances are challenged using the Reed ruling, Oregon will become the template for other cities. So
That's true.
nice work that that folks did on
Yeah.
that and got us right out in front.
Outstanding.
Item F is the youth center report. Again, we had some at the last time too, at the budget time, and that's doing well, and Diane Newland does a great job of leading that. She does. Item G, Historic Preservation Commission membership. Patrick Molzon has resigned from that commission. We are looking for permanent and alternate members on the Historic Preservation Commission, so if anybody's watching is interested, please email Mr. Grace. Yep. Item A is discussion and possible action on Park Board membership. The recommended motion, appoint Ken Clues to the Park Board as an alternate member, and appoint Mark Miller from alternate to a permanent member, replacing Amy Bronze, with the term expiring in 2019.
So move.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries, and we thank Patrick for his participation on that. I'm sorry, on the historic preservation, I missed it on that one.
Fortunately, he's still in planning.
Yeah, I was just saying, he's still on the planning commission.
He just, his work conflict in the morning now, I think, that's why, yeah.
Okay. Item I, Public Works staff is dealing with stormwater issues on the former Methodist Church property. Give a quick report on that, Jeff?
Very quick, yes, we're working on it. I was out there today. I think we're going to be able to install, this is a very temporary measure, and it's not intended to completely solve the problem, but install a drainage pipe and a inlet along the backside of those properties. We think we can do it for about $1,000 to $2,000. I think it'll alleviate some problems that we have back there right now.
Just a quick question. Obviously, I'm not an engineer, but when I think about all the extra dirt that we got coming from these different projects, would it make sense just to elevate and pitch that lot so that it flows to the drainage area that we already have?
Not yet, no, not until the low portion of this actually is on other people's properties, a significant portion of it, and so we would probably create problems in their backyards. by doing that at this point. Yeah, it's a good question, though.
Thank you.
Anything else on this? Okay, item J, discussion of possible action to adopt the Village of Oregon Annex to the Dane County Natural Mitigation Plan. There's a note, the plan includes policies and procedures that when enacted by Dane County and the village will reduce the impact of natural hazards within the county and village. Recommend motion is to adopt resolution number 17-33 to adopt the Village of Oregon Annex to the Dane County Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan.
What do you think, Doug?
Do we have a
Your
motion?
wheelhouse, isn't it?
Yeah, I would so move
Okay,
I'll second.
thank you.
to adopt it.
And I noticed in the resolution, I think a key thing, it says that this Act of 2000 requires jurisdictions to prepare and adopt a hazard mitigation plan to be eligible for future pre-disaster and post-disaster federal funding for mitigation purposes.
Yeah,
That's one of the main reasons, right?
Honestly, yeah. I mean, it's a good thing to go through and it's a good checklist, but if we ever want to apply for a FEMA grant, and we may at some
Yeah.
point, you have to have this in place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're-
And I thank the county for working on this with all the communities. It's really good
Okay.
that they do that.
Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item K, discussion possible action regarding accurate appraisal full value maintenance agreement for assessment services in 2018-2019. Recommend a motion, approve accurate appraisals full value maintenance agreement for assessment services in 2018 through 19.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Did I miss it, or is, what is the increase?
Isn't it strange how they did this? It took me a while this morning. I went into Peggy's office like 3 times, and the increase is actually $66,000 from $63,000.
Okay.
I know, because at first when I looked at this, I went, the board's gonna question it, and it's strange, you have to look into the contract on page 7, Jeannie.
Okay.
Number 24, they're not charging us for, office hours. So that's what that means. It's just
Huh.
the way they have it worded is really strange.
I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah, so
thank
it's really not going up that much, so.
you. Okay.
Does that mean they're not going to have office hours, or they're
Nope.
going to have them and just not charge us?
They're gonna have them, but once a month from December through April, and then December, like they always have, but they're not charging that time to us.
Is the staff still happy with their service?
Yes, we are, yeah. And I will tell you that I've asked other administrators about who they use, and, I mean, maybe I talked to Peggy about this, maybe at some point, we will go and do an RFP, but it's a lot of work to change assessors, and if we're relatively happy with them, I don't see a reason to do that at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any further questions or comments on item K? So we have motion second to approve accurate appraisal full value maintenance agreement for assessment services in 2018-19. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Item 9, report of committees. Planning Commission meeting items have been done under public appearances section. Item 10, minutes not requiring action, September 13, 2017, Library Board minutes and Directors Report, and also information from October 10, 2017, Cable TV Committee meeting. For those people who are watching, those are available online. Item 11, unfinished business, there is none. Item 12, new business, approval of pending new operator licenses. That's been approved by the Police Department. There are none tonight. Takes us to item 13, actually a section on 2018 budget. There's informational item on state highway aids increasing in 2018. Any comments from staff there, or just the fact it's gone up?
Just a quick, yeah, so that's the good news. I'm gonna, actually, more than we anticipated. We went down from 16 to 17, we went down the most the state could do to us. Remember, we were pretty surprised by that last year. But now we've gone up the maximum that we could get. And we think because we've added, Jeff just completed the report, we added a mile to the village, and we're gonna be spending, Perry Parkway's going in, and we're gonna be doing these projects with the county. We anticipate our aid continuing to go up. I don't see us going down for a while as we continue to spend. And that just shows that we're spending money on streets because it went up so much. Yep.
Yeah. Good. Any questions on that? Okay, item C, review of tax levy options from 9/18/17, 10/9/17, and 10/23 board meetings.
I put them in there because I thought you wanted to see, or you maybe wanted to see where we started in the middle of September and where we are now. And then just today, I gave you the most recent one. It went up from 80 to 81.29 because we have the final assessed value, and our estimate was a little bit high, so, you know, added another $1 to the increase for our average house. And so if you look at the one that was in your plastic folder, it's the reason why this changed since the last meeting, increased, we just talked about this, increased road aid from the state. We added a little bit of money back to the sick leave conversion fund. We'll be adding the new officer as of 7/1 next year. We're applying less debt proceeds. I added some money into engineering, and then this includes the final assessed value. So at this point, it stands at an $81 increase. We still may, you know, be tinkering with it as we get towards the hearing, but this is the way it looks at this point.
Okay. Any questions?
And again, what percentage is that, just for anyone watching?
The levy or the tax rate, or
Oh, the tax increase.
on average house, 5.82%, $81.
Anything else? Okay, we'll go to item D, discussion of new police officer position in 2018 budget. The recommended motion is to refer review of the new officer position and police department's overall staffing needs to the Personnel, Public Safety, and Protection Committee for further discussion and consideration, but include funding in the 2018 preliminary budget for the new position with a start date of 7/1/18.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
So at this point, if you looked at the hard budget that Lisa and I have, we have this money, 41,000 something like that, $41,000 actually sitting in contingency, rather than having it in the police department budget, because we won't put it in there until the board would technically approve the position. So,
okay,
but it's in the budget.
Do we have a date for that meeting? The next Personnel, Public Safety, and Protection Committee?
Not at this point, Jeannie, I don't. Yeah.
Could I just make a quick request of the chief, whenever that meeting does come up? If you could kind of break down for us, like the number of officers, how often you have one officer on duty, that kind of thing, that would be good to know.
Didn't I already provide that?
Yeah, that's in our budget folder.
But do you know it is, how often we have one officer on duty?
53% of the time.
Okay.
I think some of that, Jeannie, was in Brian's memo.
Yeah, it was in a memo
Yeah.
that's in.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
That's a good note, though, Jeannie.
okay. Sorry, that was too far long ago. I had someone,
to all of
Brian
us.
did a great job speaking at our Rotary Club
Yeah.
a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
And I had somebody ask me that question, and so it's in my budget binder?
Yeah.
Yeah.
52%.
You should carry that with you.
Yes, obviously, I should just carry this with me at all times. Thank you very much, Brian.
Actually, I had to go back and reread it too, as I forgot it was in there, so don't feel
Okay.
bad.
Yeah, I'm never without mine.
Give a special sector.
I must be getting late.
Man bag.
Yes.
So any other questions on the motion, item D, the new officer position and going to personnel public safety?
So if we have a start date of 7/1, when will we start the recruiting process?
Probably in April, somewhere in that area.
Thank you. Any other questions? So all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Oh, we did already, Steve, yeah.
What's that?
We did already.
Yeah. So item F, review of police department's vehicle fleet rotation for 2018. Village administrators note, after further consideration, the police department will not be requesting to order a Tesla for 2019. Please see Chief Ewell's memo in 2018. Mike will request the board to begin discussing how we could make our village fleet more fuel efficient, which may include purchasing electric vehicles for some village departments.
We've been talking about this, and I think I'm gonna make an effort next year to really, and I appreciate Brian bringing this forward, because it made me think I really should be talking to the board about this, yeah.
Okay, any questions on that? Item G, discussion of mowing practices. Village administrators note, trustee Bollig requests the board discuss the village's mowing practices at the October 23rd budget meeting. Mike is recommending that if the board wants to have a detailed discussion of mowing practices, we should notice the discussion for the November 6th board meeting to allow time to publicize the meeting.
I'll take that one. Thanks, Mike.
You're welcome, Jerry.
No, I talked to Mike about this because I thought the board made a very sound decision to save money last year when we stopped mowing the retention ponds. And after the outcry from the people living on the ponds, we decided to pull back and start mowing them again. I spoke to Jeff. Jeff is going to proceed forward next year and come forward with a plan. I don't want to have I personally don't want to have a November 6th board meeting and to do that now unless Jeff wants to. We'll go, I'd like to go on Jeff's timetable with this.
Yeah.
But I think going back to mowing the retention ponds is a sound economic move to save the taxpayers' money.
Can you say that again?
I don't think I can.
Do you want to mow them or not mow them?
Well, I want to not mow them.
Not mow them.
Not
okay.
mow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did I say mow?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
so
said
that's
mow,
what we asked.
Okay.
You had me confused for a minute. I thought I was with you, and then I wasn't.
I can remember 456 Ferry Park.
And there's
We'll
three
mow them
quarters in a year.
Quarterly, 3 times a year.
Yeah.
No, anyway, I just wanted to bring it up again, just to remind the board that in the future, we're going to be seeing this again.
Yeah, I think-
And Jeff's going to bring that forward on his schedule, but I think it's ridiculous to mow the retention ponds. I really do.
Yeah.
And,
I think if we can bring it forward in a discussion next year sometime, and we'll make sure that they know we're going to discuss it.
Yep.
We can fill the room with people again and stuff like that, but I think, and then also look at an implementation schedule if there is a change.
Yeah,
So
so
that
next-
people know well in advance that it's coming or happening, if there are changes, that you so direct.
right.
In addition to mow, not mow, could we also look at alternatives like, I can't remember the name, it's like a rain garden or special plantings that look nice, that you don't have to mow, but then it looks
Yes.
good, so people are not as upset about it.
Not a big rain garden fan.
What was that?
I'm not a big rain garden fan
Oh, okay.
because they're high maintenance.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, we would have a lot of areas to maintain.
Yeah.
Never mind.
We can talk about it. I definitely would, I mean, I'm always open for ideas, but my experience, especially, there's a few in the village that they just become overgrown weed patches eventually, unless they're maintained by someone who really knows the plants and knows the native species and everything like that. But
That kind of brings me to the point I was going to make, or the request I was going to have, which is to invite these groups that identify with these areas to bring a plan forward.
But I think their plan, did we have this discussion at the planning commission or at this level when people came in and talked?
Public Works Committee.
Yeah,
Public
Public
Works
Works.
Committee.
yes.
Were you guys all there?
Yeah.
I was not.
Okay. The problem was, as I recall from that meeting, was that some neighborhoods liked it not being mowed, and some neighborhoods were like, you have to mow it. And Jeff said it would be difficult for his staff to mow some and not others, and he would rather see either mow it or not mow it around the village, right? Is
Well,
that
yeah,
correct?
yes, and I know what Jeff's talking about, because there are individuals in the community who have said, we want to step up and take responsibility for it, and that can cause some legal issues and everything like that. And then there's the management of that, I think is the concern. Like if you have neighborhood XYZ going to go ahead and take care of it, what happens when they stop taking care of it? And then you're getting phone calls from people that want you now to police the fact that this neighborhood committee's not taking care of it. So there's just always, I think there's can be a creative approach that hopefully we can find a medium ground on, but at a later date.
At a later date.
I know some people had comment, if it rains a lot and those drainage ditches that get a lot of water in, and it gets hot and there's a lot of mosquitoes, and then people are concerned about that. And they said even with children playing in there, the water is pretty deep, you never know.
Wisconsin is beer, cheese, and mosquitoes. Remember that, regardless of what happens in construction.
Right,
Yes.
but that's what.
But yes, you're exactly right.
Okay, so, and I think that discussion going forward is not just do we mow or not mow, it's also what are the tasks that Public Works is not getting done, and where does mowing fit in with that? Because I think there's some things, in my mind, more important that aren't getting done than mowing those drainage ways. So we will see, we'll talk about that later.
And I think the takeaway for me is always, I think the more you can educate people as to why you're doing things, the less people get upset when they're
Yeah.
done. And,
Yeah.
and where we stepped in our own way over this past year, in my opinion, is where we've made decisions before we gave the public an opportunity to know what we were doing and why.
Yeah.
So,
That just came about through inexperience, I think, so.
Yep.
Yeah.
Lesson learned.
lesson learned, that's
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, item H. Also, if we did do this at November 6th board meeting, I was going to let Jerry chair that meeting.
No,
Item H.
I'll be gone.
Clarification response to trustee Bolly's question regarding charging interest for advance from general fund for the purchase of the former Methodist Church property. The library board will be requested to use impact fees to pay back the general fund for advancing $107,188 plus a land contract cost of $10,451.82 on the balance of $830 for purchase of property for new library building. Total purchase price is $900,451.82. So, questions on
I
that?
apologize, I did not, when Jerry asked that question, I did not answer it very well, and then I ended up talking to Lisa about it, and the light bulb went on, that's why we weren't charging interest, because we were gonna ask them to cover the land contract costs.
Very good.
Yeah.
You shouldn't let that guy ask so many questions.
No, that was a good question. No, that was a really good question.
So item I, a really short item, but a very important one, discussion and possible action, approving the 2018 preliminary budget, including proposed tax levy, and setting November 20, 2017 as public hearing date.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
I do just want to make a comment. I feel very lucky to live in the Village of Oregon. I feel very lucky to work with everybody on this village board and with the staff, because it seems as if we're all focused on investing in our community and making it the best community that it can be. And I work and have worked in other communities, and I can honestly say that that's not always the case. And ultimately, it's the residents that pay the price when the board isn't willing to lean in. So, thank you all.
Thanks, Jeff. I think we all feel that way too. It's a good, effective board and good staff and good residents, so that's good. Any questions on the item proposed through the motion and second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. There's some future agenda items under number 14, and item 15 is a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're done. Thanks, everyone.